Chapter 69. Oh my God, Brother Xiao, you bought a heavy truck? The four teammates were invited to the garage. Leah Lin and Lin Yao were excited as they climbed up and down the truck. Lambert was very interested in the engine, so he opened the hood and admired it. Zhang Wei came to Han Zhao's side and said, "Thank you." A logistics vehicle was a luxury for a small team. Zhang Wei felt embarrassed that Han Xiao had paid for it himself. Han Xiao laughed. "Just think of it as me helping the needy." Zhang Wei's mouth twitched. He was speechless. Although what he said was true, why did his honesty make him feel so uncomfortable? I racked my brains and came up with a name for this car. Zhang Wei's ears perked up. Han Xiao moistened his throat and said seriously, "Big Black." Zhang Wei's foot slipped, and he forced a smile. Good name. You think so too, right? Catchy and to the point. I admire myself. Han Xiao clicked his tongue. As long as you're happy. The driver's seat is so big. Leah Lin was having a lot of fun. Suddenly, she thought of something and asked, "Who's going to drive?" Han Xiao said, "This is my car. Of course, I'll be the one driving." Leah Lin's face turned pale. She remembered the fear of being controlled by Han Xiao. She trembled and said, Can I not sit?" Zhang Wei frowned and scolded. "Han Xiao is spending money to let us enjoy the convenience. Why are you refusing?" Leah Lin's face was ashen. She muttered, "You'll regret it." Regret? Zhang Wei didn't understand what Leah Lin meant. Was she saying that Han Zhao's driving skills were terrible? What was so bad about that? How bad could his driving skills be? They were all well-trained agents with excellent physical fitness. They wouldn't even faint on a roller coaster ride. What was there to be afraid of? Zhang Wei didn't think so. "By the way, our superiors told us that we will be leaving in 4 days," Lin Yao suddenly said. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. He had spent around 10 days to fully modify his body. Originally, he had wanted to install a turret on the heavy truck. He had even learned the knowledge, but unfortunately, there was not enough time. He thought for a moment and said to Zhang Wei, "Bring the war armor over. I will help you modify it." Zhang Wei's eyes lit up. He was very confident in Han Zhao's mechanical abilities. Hearing this, Leah Lin immediately jumped over and shook Han Zhao's shoulder. "What about me? What about me? Didn't you promise to tailor equipment for me?" she asked. "Let's talk about it when I have the inspiration." Han Xiao pushed the chattering Leah Lin away. "As a martial artist, you should use your fists to beat people up. Why do you keep thinking about my machines?" The prototype of the war armor was quickly sent over. It was like the armor in a museum. It was supported by a plastic skeleton and placed in a metal box that was as tall as a person. The logistics personnel were the salted fish from the logistics department. Han Xiao said, "Time is limited. I'm going to do the most necessary modifications. First, I will increase the upper limit of the energy efficiency. Then, I will change the power mode. I will reduce the load and fill the endoskeleton with mechanical power to help you move." "That's great." Zhang Wei's face lit up. The armor was too heavy. Every time he used it, his back would ache and his legs would cramp. It was more tiring than running 10,000 meters. "After that, I will install a simple chip in your armor to detect the situation outside. I will also give you a set of fire control system that will allow your long-range weapons to aim automatically. If time allows, I will equip you with a set of simple melee weapons." "Okay." Zhang Wei was overjoyed. He had completely turned into a salted fish that was shouting 666. Han Xiao suddenly changed the topic. "Of course, all of this will be charged. The total is 360,000 yuan. "How much?" Zhang Wei's heart sank. He only had less than 1,000,000 yuan in savings. "You think it's expensive?" Han Xiao glanced at him. Zhang Wei hurriedly nodded. "Are your parents still alive?" Zhang Wei was stunned. "Why are you asking this? They are all dead. Do you have any siblings?" "I'm the only son in my family." "Do you have a wife or a girlfriend?" No, I'm alone." Han Xiao tilted his head and had a strange look on his face. "Then why are you saving money?" Thousands of arrows pierced the heart. "Huff! Stop talking, I will pay." Zhang Wei painfully clutched his chest. He felt like his heart was being attacked by 100,000 rhinoceroses. Han Xiao would not act until he saw the hair. After receiving the advance payment from Zhang Wei, he started to modify the prototype of the wearer armor. Basic Energy Theory, Level 3. Han Xiao had the technology to strengthen the power of the energy source. He did not want to modify Zhang Wei's armor, so he did not want to create a new energy source blueprint. Of course, he would keep the good stuff for himself. He could use blueprints for the power frame and detection chip. These two types were more common. Do you wish to proceed with knowledge fusion? LV. 1 basic wide area sensing plus LV. 2 basic virtual electronics. This fusion will cost you 10,000 EXP. Do you wish to proceed with knowledge fusion? LV. 2 basic mechanical theory plus LV. 4 basic mechanical engineering. This fusion will cost you 10,000 EXP. Fusion successful. Congratulations on developing the low-level smart chip. Fusion successful. Congratulations on developing K600 power endoskeleton. These were 2 very common mechanical blueprints. It could be said that they were blueprints that most mechanics would have. Han Xiao was not surprised that he was able to fuse them in one go. Low-level smart chip was also sold on the market. The difference was that after unlocking the blueprints, Han Xiao could make it himself and program it as he wished. Seeing the word low-level, Han Xiao knew that there would be a higher-level version of this blueprint in the future. The high-level AI of large robots, or the system that controlled vehicles or battleships were all high-level versions of this blueprint. The K600 Power Endoskeleton was one of the basic models of the Power Endoskeleton series. The Power Endoskeleton was worn directly on the body, and the Power Endoskeleton was the internal power structure of the full body armor. It was hidden inside the armor and functioned similar to the Power Endoskeleton, providing extra power. The Power Endoskeleton was a prerequisite to creating power armors. It was not hard to guess the more advanced applications. Small mechanical armors, medium mechanical armors, large mechanical armors, very large mechanical armors, and so on. Han Xiao took apart the outer armor of the combatant and exposed the intricate components inside. Han Xiao sized it up for a while before starting work. First, he increased the power of the power source. Then, he built the frame, made the processing chip, and bought some cameras, detectors, and red heat sensors as detection equipment. On the morning of the 4th day, he finally finished modifying the combatant armor. The exterior was still black and heavy, but the interior was like SH*T. He finally had the prototype of a power armor. However, there was not enough time to make melee weapons, so Han Xiao gave up. It was normal to take money but not do anything. He had even put the order for the high explosive ammunition on hold for half a month. Han Xiao yawned and looked at the interface. Combatant armor, derivation progress, 2%. Reverse engineering blueprints was one of the ways for mechanics to obtain blueprints. The requirements were very strict. Usually, when one was stuck at a certain point, they would be prompted with prerequisites. For example, when the research was at 30%, an intelligence requirement greater than XX requirement would suddenly pop up. Only after that could the research continue. Even if the research was full, a large amount of EXP would be required to learn the blueprint. The core of the combatant armor was the Mechanic Class Advanced Knowledge, Heavy Mechanical Modification. This prerequisite would probably pop up when the research was at 50%. The combatant armor blueprint was not a necessity for Han Xiao, so he did not bother with it. Today was the day of departure. The team of 4 gathered in the garage. Lin Yao looked at the computer and suddenly said, "We've gathered at the Eastern Sentry Post." "Okay, get in the car," Zhang Wei said with a deep voice. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin rushed to the driver's seat at lightning speed. She stared at Han Xiao nervously and said, Can I drive?" Han Xiao rubbed his eyes. He had stayed up for a few days and was so sleepy that he felt like he was going to ascend to heaven. Therefore, he did not insist. He told Lin to drive steadily and walk to the cargo compartment. He took a few backpacks and used them as blankets before lying down to sleep. Lin heaved a sigh of relief. She felt like she had just escaped death. She did not even have the strength to complain that Han Xiao had the guts to ask her to drive steadily. Seeing that Han Xiao was going to sleep, The rest of them sat in the driver's seat and did not disturb Han Shao. West Capital, Eastern Sentry Post, military train station. The higher-ups attached great importance to the attack on the Dark Crow Valley base. This time, Division 13 had sent 3 secret operations teams to participate in this large-scale joint operation. One was Zhang Wei's team, and the other was Ma Qingyang's team. They were the team that Zhang Wei had rescued. The last team was the ace team of the Secret Operations Department, Di Su Su's team. She was the team leader. At this time, the 2 secret operations teams were waiting at the train station. Next to them was an officer from the General Staff Department. He would be the advisor and supervisor to control the operations of the secret operations team. There were precedents in the past. Every secret operations team was made up of elite agents with strong opinions. It was easy for them to have disagreements during operations, and they would act separately. In the end, accidents would occur during the mission. In order to deal with such situations, Division 13 had adjusted their personnel strategy. When there were multiple teams working together, a member of the General Staff Department would be assigned to oversee the overall situation. The officers of the General Staff Department would study all kinds of battlefield commanding knowledge throughout the year. Before a mission, they would gather information about the team members and come up with strategies for the operation. Although the secret operations team members all agreed that the staff officers were useless except for writing battle reports and carrying the blame, the rules were rules. As long as the staff officers did not interfere, everyone would be safe. Why isn't Zhang Wei here yet? What time is it? Ma Qingyang looked up at the sun and took a puff of his cigarette. He had a good relationship with Zhang Wei, and the relationship between the 2 teams was also good. Di Su Su was waiting on the other side with her team. She was playing with a coin in her hand. She was looking forward to meeting Li Yulin. She was excited to be able to bully Li Yulin again. She was also very curious about Li Yulin's new teammate, the mechanic named Han Shao. Qi Baijia rubbed his beautiful eyebrows. His eyes were hurt by the reflection of the coin. He had no choice but to turn his face away. The rumbling sound of an engine could be heard from afar. Just by listening to the sound, one could imagine the immense power of the engine. Even through his boots, he could feel the slight trembling of the ground. Qi Baijia looked towards the source of the sound. A ferocious-looking, huge military-modified heavy truck was slowly approaching. Ma Qingyang threw away his cigarette and extinguished it with the tip of his foot. Di Su Su clenched her hand and caught the coin in her palm. Qi Baijia raised his hand and adjusted his collar. Chapter 70. The haste slowly came to a stop. Zhang Wei and the other 3 alighted from the carriage. I'm Qi Baijia, the officer leading the team this time. Qi Baijia had a solemn expression on his face as he saluted, looking valiant and heroic. Hello, it's a pleasure to work with you. Zhang Wei nodded. He turned around and gave Ma Qingyang a big hug. Lin Yao's eyes lit up when he saw Di Su Su. He couldn't retract his hands from Di Su Su's body. He waved his hand shyly and greeted her. Sister Su Su, little Lin Lin. Di Su Su ignored Lin Yao and walked past him. She walked in front of Li Yulin with a smile on her face. She pinched Li Yulin's cheeks and said, "You've become prettier since we last met. Get lost. I don't know you that well." Li Yulin frowned and slapped Di Su Su's hand away. Di Su Su didn't care. She glanced around and asked curiously, "Where's your mechanic? Where is he?" Li Yulin crossed her arms and didn't answer. Zhang Wei answered, "He's a little tired. He's sleeping in a car. This car is our logistics vehicle." After Zhang Wei said this, he straightened his back and looked proud. Ma Qingyang and Di Su Su's team members were envious. They looked at their team leaders with resentment. "We want a logistics car too." Qi Baijia clapped his hands and said, "All right, it's getting late. Let's go." A military train was parked at the station. This time, they were not taking a plane and were going by land. There were 40 field personnel accompanying them. They were all well-trained soldiers. They were busy moving boxes of ammunition and guns onto the train. Since most of the roads had been abandoned, the 6 nations had developed railways. The military train was faster than the civilian train and would reach the destination in 3 days. The first 5 carriages were the driver's cabin, 2 living rooms, a dining room, and a gun storage. The last few carriages were open-air carriages used to transport vehicles. Leah Lynn drove Dahay onto the train. The soldiers locked Dahay onto the train and covered it with a dust-proof cloth to prevent it from being blown away by the wind. After everyone boarded the train, the military train rumbled away and drove out of the eastern sentry post. Under the scorching sun, it went deep into the desolate and dangerous wilderness. Han Xiao felt a vibration in his sleep and woke up. The lights installed on the top of the cargo compartment emitted a soft white light 24 hours a day, illuminating the space around him. All he could see were cold machines of various shapes, but they gave him a sense of security. Han Xiao pressed his thumb and index finger on his Jingming acupoint and rubbed it a few times. Only then did he wake up. He opened the door of the cargo compartment and found himself on a high-speed train. The oncoming wind rolled up his messy hair, and the deck under his feet was shaking nonstop. The sound of the train rushing into his ears, and the military train was moving along the tracks. The stars in the sky were scattered, and the moonlight shrouded the sky. In the distance, there were mountains and hills, and wild grass was everywhere. I slept all day? Han Xiao was stunned for a moment. Following the light, he walked into the carriage in front. Before that, he put on the face simulator and adjusted it to the first memory of an ordinary young man. After thinking for a while, he put on another face mask. Needless to say, that was how scheming he was. After entering the carriage, the sound of the wind disappeared, and the sound of people talking hit him in the face. He suddenly had the illusion that he had returned from the barbaric era to the civilized era. When Han Xiao walked in, everyone immediately stopped talking. Pairs of eyes gathered on Han Xiao with curiosity and scrutiny. Disu Su was the first to stand up. She swayed her slim waist and walked in front of Han Xiao. With a face full of curiosity, she asked, "You are Han Xiao? You have the wrong person." Han Xiao casually replied, "If I answer whatever you ask, won't I lose face?" Everyone's face stiffened. "Who are you trying to lie to? Everyone is in the carriage. Who else can you be?" Disu Su's face stiffened. She just wanted to use this as an excuse, but she did not expect Han Xiao to reply like this. For a moment, she did not know what to say. When Leah Lin saw that the scheming girl was defeated, she immediately felt good. She waved her hand and said, "Brother Xiao, come sit here." Han Xiao nodded and sat beside Zhang Wei and the others. Leah Lin immediately whispered to Han Xiao, "Well done. You made the scheming girl lose face." Sex hormones? Han Xiao was stunned. A girl with such a slutty name? That's her, Disu Su, a despicable and unreasonable woman. Leah Lin gritted her teeth. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and said, "Why do I feel like you are describing yourself?" Lin Yao agreed, but he did not dare to say anything. He was afraid of being beaten. He secretly looked at Han Xiao with admiration. As expected of Brother Xiao, he was not afraid at all. He said whatever he wanted. So cool. Disu Su saw that Leah Lin and Han Xiao seemed to be intimate. Her face changed, and a trace of anger flashed in her eyes. Ma Qingyang, who was standing at the side, extended his hand and smiled. "Brother, this is the first time we have met. I am Ma Qingyang." Han Xiao took Leah Lin's 720-degree waist rotation and shook hands with him naturally. He said, "Strictly speaking, we have not met before." Ma Qingyang was stunned. He looked at Han Xiao's mask and did not know whether to laugh or cry. "You are right." Qi Bai Jia clapped his hands and said, "All right, everyone is here. Let me tell you the details of this operation. The field personnel can leave for a moment." The field personnel knew that this was the rule, so they left the carriage. The environment immediately quieted down, leaving only the 3 secret operation teams and Qi Bai Jia. Qi Bai Jia coughed lightly, took out a stack of information, and spread out a map on the table. "This operation is a joint operation between us and Hesla's intelligence department. Hesla's army is stationed at the border and can be deployed at any time. Our mission is to infiltrate the enemy's defenses and provide intelligence support to the army. This is the map sent by Hesla. Darkrow Valley is easy to defend and difficult to attack. The dense forest makes it impossible to detect the location of the base through aerial photography. The enemy's military strength and location are unknown, so we can only invade from the ground. When it came to the mission, everyone became serious. Di Su Su tapped her forehead with her finger and frowned. It sounds like a heavily guarded fortress. Can't Hesla's army invade from the ground? Chi Bai Jia shook his head. They are not willing to. Hesla's style was to prioritize profits. If they could contribute 20% of their strength, they would not put in 30% of their effort. Before the situation was clear, they would not allow the army to set foot in unexplored areas. This was to prevent accidental losses. The Covert Operations Department was responsible for such high-risk missions, where they would take the lead and enter the enemy's territory. Leah Lin snorted softly. She did not want to show any weakness. She quickly asked, "Then, where is the breakthrough?" Chi Bai Jia tapped on the map. West of Dark Crow Valley, there's a large rogue settlement called Dark Crow Forest. Dark Crow Forest Town dared to be built near the Germinal Organization base. This proves that the two parties are secretly in cahoots. There may be spies from the Dark Crow Valley base. Therefore, this is the breakthrough, and there is a chance to obtain intelligence. According to the intelligence, there are 3 people to be careful of in the Dark Crow Valley base. Chi Bai Jia took out the documents and distributed them. Seeing that everyone was browsing with their heads lowered, he concisely said, "Head Supervisor Pan Kwong, male, 35 years old, Asian, grade E+ pugilist, executive officer of the Germinal Organization. His weapon is a sword, nicknamed Sword Soul. His most recent achievement was 3 years ago, when he single-handedly killed 12 Theseus agents at the border of Theseus. 4 of them were superhumans. The information showed an expressionless man. He looked ordinary, but there was a fierce aura about him. Not to be messed with, everyone thought at the same time. Deputy Supervisor GG, male, 29 years old, mixed race. There is very little information about him. We only know that he seems to be related to the leader of the Wind Eye organization, Jinua. Guard Captain Doman, 43 years old, from Shanner, good at using all kinds of firearms. He is a super elite agent and once led a Night Owl team." Ma Qingyang was puzzled. "Didn't you say that you don't know the internal situation of the Dark Crow Valley base? Where did this detailed information come from?" Everyone had the same question. Chi Bai Jia shook his head. "I'm not sure. The higher-ups said that this is confidential." Everyone nodded and did not ask any more questions. Han Xiao scratched his ear. "The source of the confidential information is sitting right beside you, comrades." Chi Bai Jia continued to talk about some things to take note of. Then he changed the topic and said, "For this joint operation, Hesla has also sent a small team of military intelligence agents. When we arrive at the location, they will move together with us." Zhang Wei's face twitched. 2 agents working together? Chi Bai Jia coughed awkwardly. "Yes. Isn't this troublesome?" Hesla was not satisfied with the information they had on Star Dragon. It was obvious that they did not want to contribute themselves. That was why they requested for Division 13 to send agents to participate in the operation. Everyone looked at each other. The relationship between the 2 countries was not very good. The agents were also hostile to each other. They felt that this mission was going to be a scam. The information was not useful to Han Xiao. Han Xiao yawned and looked out of the car window. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. He interrupted the discussion and shouted, "Beast attack!" Chapter 71. The train shook violently, and the source of the vibration came from the carriage at the back. The Secret Service agents barely managed to stand still. They quickly looked out of the window and were shocked. Under the night sky, a huge black worm was entangled in the back of the carriage, circling around it again and again. Its body was dozens of meters long, and the surface of its body was pitch-black chitin shell. It was shiny and reflected the moonlight, looking sinister and strange. The worm's head was the mouth of the worm, and circles of sharp teeth went deep into its throat. At that moment, this giant worm was chewing on the iron shell of the carriage, tearing a hole in it. A field agent was swallowed by it in one gulp, and his scream lasted for only a short while before he was crushed into minced meat by the mouth of sharp teeth. Han Xiao shuddered, and the bold idea that just came to him suddenly disappeared without a trace. Chi Bai Jia's expression changed. Black earthworm. Han Xiao took out the berserk eagle from behind his waist and fired a shot at the black worm. He then looked at the combat information on the interface and immediately felt his lower body tighten. Black earthworm level. 48 profession. Childhood. Level 10/youth. Level 10/prime. Level 10/estrus. Level 10/LV8 age. 71 attributes. STR 80 DX. Endurance. Intelligence. Mystery. Charm 1. Luck 2 energy. 0 energy rank. Health points. Abilities. Thick chitin shell. Defense plus 20. Darkness. Dark environment attribute plus 15%. Large body. Health plus 1000. Critical hit rate reduced by 20%. Iron shoe. Additional 25% damage to metal. Thin earth dragon bloodline. Health plus 2000. Abnormal resistance plus 10%. Skills. Entanglement level 7. Earth walk level 10. Spinning bite level 6. Strong acid spit level 5. Even a beast is luckier than me. Who can I reason with? Fire. The Secret Service agents all pulled out their pistols and fired back. The gunshots were deafening, and the bullets bounced off the thick carapace of the black earthworm, but they did not cause much damage. Blue Star's wilderness was extremely dangerous. All kinds of ferocious beasts ran amok. In history, there were many tragedies of beasts massacring cities. Humans relied on the power of collective intelligence to barely climb to the top of the food chain. The black earthworm had a long lifespan, and its body length continued to increase with age. It was originally a gentle creature that lived in the dark. It usually slept underground and rarely moved, unless it was awakened by a huge vibration from the ground above its head. Everyone immediately understood that the passing train must have woken up the giant blackworm. In order to avoid encountering wild beasts, every railway was specially equipped with maintenance personnel. Every once in a while, they would use all kinds of equipment to check the road conditions, including underground life detectors that could detect black earthworms. If this black earthworm did not arrive after the previous check, then the maintenance personnel were just being lazy. The field agents who were treated as prey panicked and pulled out their pistols to fight back. However, the small caliber of the pistols was not even enough to tickle the black earthworm, which had more than 100 defense points. All the bombs and high-powered firearms were placed in the storage compartment, and the compartment that was attacked by the black earthworm was right in the middle. The agents could not get their hands on the weapons, and the situation was very dangerous. The situation was chaotic. The wind swept through the compartment, and some of the debris was thrown out of the hole and into the wind by the high-speed train. The train was tilted at a 15-degree angle, and the friction between the chassis and the track was ear-piercing. A series of sparks flew, and it looked like it would be overturned by the black earthworm's huge weight at any time. "Get out of the way!" Leah Lin shouted and jumped up. She pulled out her retractable saber and slashed at the black earthworm shell with a bright yellow flame aura. Crack! A clear crack appeared on the worm shell. It worked. Pugilists were able to maximize the destructive power of their energy. Their punches and kicks had great strength, and in this situation, it was actually very useful. Li Su's eyes flashed as she followed closely behind. She also pulled out her retractable knife, and a green flame covered the blade. Her speed was like lightning, and she slashed a small piece of the carapace with great force, leaving a faint green afterimage in everyone's vision. The black earthworm did not care about the two of them. Relying on its thick carapace, it had a calm expression that said, "You can do whatever you want. It will be my loss if I move even a little bit." It tightened its body at a certain angle, and the compartment gradually changed shape. The Blue Star Beast was very strong, and its various molding abilities made it very resistant to attacks. The Black Earthworm was obviously a wild boss-level monster, and without the firepower of a modern armed army, it would be very difficult to kill it. Even for players, the Black Earthworm was a monster that at least 5 to 10 people of the same level could challenge. Of course, there were some professional players who could solo kill it. Crunch, Crunch, crunch. Another 2 pieces of delicious human-shaped bread were swallowed by the black earthworm. This kind of delicious food was much better than the sandworms underground. The black earthworm ground its teeth together, as if it was savoring this rare and fresh delicacy. The people in the field felt their hair stand on end. The pressure from the top of the food chain made them almost lose their balance. It was as if in this situation, humans had been stripped of their pride of wisdom and had become frightened lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Fire! The black earthworm is afraid of fire. Su shouted. The black earthworm's eyesight had deteriorated and was very sensitive to fire and high temperature. It was like the effect of a flash bomb on humans, which would damage the black earthworm's eyesight. If the stalemate continued, the train would be destroyed. Everyone realized this and immediately understood that the only choice was to use fire to force the black earthworm back. Zhang Wei quickly took out the high-explosive bullets that he carried with him and reloaded them. The high-explosive bullets were special bullets, and the agents usually used regular bullets. Bang! 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 In an instant, the black earthworm's impenetrable shell lit up with majestic flames from the big FFF group. The black earthworm, which had been very calm, suddenly started twisting its body crazily. The flames and the high temperature made it extremely uncomfortable, and it became very irritable. It was like a baboon that had failed to mate. Han Xiao stood firmly like a nail. The increasing shaking made him worry that the train would flip over. Basically, all the Secret Service agents had bought his high-explosive bullets before. This kind of situation could be left to the Secret Service agents of Division 13 to deal with, and he was happy to be a bystander. Bundles of flames appeared on the black earthworm's body. Not long after, the black earthworm could not stand the blinding light anymore. It screamed, let go of the carriage, and turned to burrow into the ground. Sand and soil flew everywhere, and within a few seconds, its 10-meter-long body had burrowed into the ground. Its speed was extremely fast, and only a layer of soil was left to cover the hole it had dug. The field agents who had just escaped death felt their legs go weak, and they all fell to the ground with lingering fear. We're saved. I'm not dead yet. I'm not dead yet. Mom, I miss you so much. The black earthworm had only appeared for a few minutes, but it had already caused a lot of damage. The carriage was in tatters, and if they had not gotten rid of it in time, the carriage would have been destroyed. They might not have died, but they would definitely have been late. Fortunately, there were high-explosive bullets. Everyone looked at Han Xiao and felt a sense of gratitude. Zhang Wei patted Han Xiao's shoulder. He felt that it was a good feeling to not have to say anything. If you want to thank me, just say it. I can't read your mind. Everyone was speechless. Your ability to destroy the atmosphere is at the expert level. The field agents rested for a while and got up to clean up the mess. The attack of the black earthworm was just a small episode. The military railway route was relatively safe, and only this accident had happened. The scenery along the way was mostly mountains, forests, and plains. After a while, it was easy to get tired of looking at it. Along the way, Han Xiao stayed in the big black carriage and practiced the energy extraction technique and built machines to gain experience. 3 days later, the train arrived at the Hesla border station. P.S. Thank you to book friend 1608221522011168. Wretched exclamation mark. White Phantom ZY. ID not easy to choose. Book friend 15012721117777. Lonely Swan flies at night. WFYY. Let him go for a few days. Train at midnight. Book friend 1507090056071186 for your tips. Chapter 72. Hesla and Stardragon were located on the same continent. Perhaps it was because Hesla's climate was hotter, but Hesla's culture was more open. Many beautiful women and men in bikinis could be seen walking around the beach. The train stopped at a military station. Looking out of the window, there was only a middle-aged man wearing a colorful shirt and sunglasses on the platform. It seemed like he was there to pick them up. Han Xiao got off the train with the rest of the team. Chi Bai Jiao walked in front and said to the middle-aged man in sunglasses, "Star Dragon Division 13, Chi Bai Jia." The uncle in sunglasses chuckled and took off his sunglasses, revealing a dispirited face full of stubble. His entire aura was so ordinary that it was a mess. He was like a salted fish uncle waiting for customers in a small shop on the side of the street. Hesla Military Intelligence, Yi Fan. Han Xiao almost choked on his saliva. Yi Fan? Which Yi Fan are you? What happened to you? Where's your arrogance? Where's your arrogance? This doesn't match any of the Yi Fan in my memory. Yi Fan looked at the train that was full of holes and asked, "Did you encounter a beast?" "It's just a small blackworm. It's nothing to worry about." Chi Bai Jia coughed. Although the situation was dangerous, he could not lose his cool in front of the Hesla people. He had to appear calm and collected. This was politically correct. "Then you're lucky to have arrived safely." Yi Fan laughed and did not ask if Chi Bai Jia was telling the truth. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Yi Fan put on his sunglasses again and said, "Let's not waste any time. We will report to the commanding officer first before we depart. Don't think it's troublesome. Compared to Maple, we have saved at least 90% of the procedures." Some of the field personnel laughed. Maple's rigid system had always been a joke. It was said that the Shanus had worked together with Maple to eliminate a rogue warlord. Before the operation started, the Shanus, who were known for their impatience, were driven mad by Maple's complicated reporting procedures. They almost got into a fight with Maple's officers at the headquarters of Maple's intelligence agency in Karoma. The reporting procedure for a joint operation was for both parties to leave a mission report at the commanding officer's office before starting the operation. For this mission, Hesla's army was in charge of the assault while the agents were in charge of infiltration and reconnaissance. They were also in charge of finding out the exact location of the Dark Crow Valley base and the distribution of the armed forces. Along the way, they could see brand new military bulletproof off-road vehicles and small tanks parked in the garage. There were also missile vehicles equipped with honeycomb launchers and groups of soldiers carrying ammunition and supplies. Zhang Wei, Disu Su, Ma Qingyang, and the rest of the Star Dragon agents had become quiet. They were completely different from when they were chatting on the train. It was most likely due to their national pride. Seeing this, Han Xiao did not want to do anything out of line, so he could only mingle with the team. The commander, Colonel Carl, was a stern-looking Caucasian officer in his prime. He was observing the strategic map on the wall with his hands behind his back. When he heard the sound of the door opening, he thought it was his adjutant. Without turning his head, he shouted, "Didn't I tell you not to disturb me when I'm thinking?" Yi Fan coughed. "Colonel, the Star Dragon agents are here to file a report." When Carl saw that it was Yi Fan, his expression eased up. He narrowed his eyes and glanced at the Star Dragon agents. His gaze was cold and indifferent. He snorted and opened a drawer. He took out a document and stamped it. "Take them to rest for a while. They will depart with our people in an hour." Carl's attitude towards the Division 13 agents was cold and indifferent. Yi Fan brought them to a simple lounge and said, "Don't wander around. We will depart in a while." After Yi Fan left, only the Star Dragon agents were left in the lounge. Lin Yao finally dared to speak. He whispered, "Why do I feel that the soldiers outside are looking at us strangely? It's as if they are ostracizing us. Also, the commander seems to be hostile towards us." "Don't you know?" Ma Qingyang sneered. "Star Dragon had a war with Hesla in the past. Hesla's people are not friendly to us. Even the agents who go to other countries for joint operations have to suffer such treatment. Carl doesn't look like a moderate." Division 13's factional rivalry was not an exception. It was a situation that existed in almost every country. Maple and Ordina were more conservative, Raylan and Theseus were more aggressive, and Star Dragon and Hesla were more balanced. Then why does the Bureau still want to work with Hesla? Lin Yao asked in disbelief. What if Hesla uses us as cannon fodder? Who knows what the higher-ups are thinking? You just have to be careful. Ma Qingyang did not care. As a veteran of the Covert Operations Department, he was used to such situations. Chi Bai Jia coughed and explained, "Don't worry. You have to get my approval before you can be deployed. After chatting for a while, everyone quietened down and closed their eyes to rest. They were preparing themselves for the mission. I'm going out for a smoke. Han Xiao got up and walked to the door of the lounge. He lit a cigarette and took a deep puff. The smoke passed through his throat and circled around his lungs. Then he exhaled 2 thick streams of smoke from his nostrils. He felt relaxed. You have triggered the faction mission Dark Crow Valley Operation. Mission Introduction. This is a small-scale military operation. As a member of Division 13, you are a participant in this operation. Let's see what you can do. Hint: this is a faction series mission. You can complete the following requirements in this mission. Reconnaissance I. Team mission. Investigate the situation in Dark Crow Forest Town. Reward: 3,000 EX per reconnaissance 2. Team mission. Investigate the specific situation in Dark Crow Valley Base. Reward: 8,000 EXP logistics team mission. Personal mission. Complete 20 tool repairs for your teammates. Reward: 5,000 EXP Dark Forest Assassin. Personal mission. Assassinate 8 sentries. Reward: 18,000 EXP Direct Conflict. Personal mission. Kill 50 Germinal Organization soldiers. Reward: 35,000 EXP Execution I. Kill Duo Meng. Rewards will be given based on contribution. Assassination 2. Kill Ji Jia. Reward based on contribution. Assassination 3. Kill Pan Kuang. Reward based on contribution. Annihilation of Dark Crow Valley. Complete the mission objective. Reward based on contribution. After the mission, additional rewards will be given based on the number of targets completed. Han Xiao had thought that this operation would be a normal mission. He did not expect it to be a faction mission. This was even better. He had more room to maneuver. There were many types of missions: competitive missions, prize pool missions, series missions, and faction missions. As long as the majority of the targets were completed, the rewards would definitely be good. Han Xiao was smoking when a woman with short red hair walked towards him. She stopped in front of him and asked with uncertainty, "Are you from Star Dragon?" Han Xiao looked at her and nodded. "I guess so." Chapter 73. Han Xiao looked at the red-haired woman and did not dodge. The dagger stopped 3 centimeters away from the aorta. The sudden change in movement showed that the red-haired woman had great control over her body. "Why aren't you dodging?" "Why should I? You think I don't dare to stab you? You can get a try." Han Xiao's expression was normal. Under the red-haired woman's sight, the magnetically controlled retractable armor had climbed up to his collar and could protect his neck at any time. Therefore, he was not afraid of the dagger. Furthermore, the fact that the other party was able to appear in the military camp so openly meant that they were Hesla's agents. Therefore, it was impossible for them to actually attack him. This was most likely a test or a show of strength. Since they had chosen him as their target, Han Xiao was slightly displeased. Even his gaze became oppressive. The red-haired woman suddenly felt a chill down her spine. She did not know where this feeling came from. She calmed herself down and said coldly, "Winna, MIB agent." As soon as she finished speaking, Winna suddenly felt something poking her lower abdomen. She looked down and saw a large caliber pistol pointing at her abdomen. Han Xiao smiled and said, "Han Xiao." So fast. I did not even see how he pulled out the gun. Winna's pupil shrank. She put away her dagger. Han Xiao also put away his gun. "I will remember your name." Winna turned around and left. Han Xiao shook his head. Hesla agents are indeed not friendly. I hope they will not drag me down. After walking for a distance, Winna heaved a sigh of relief. Then she realized that cold sweat was dripping down her temples. Her expression was slightly serious. That Star Dragon agent gave her a very dangerous feeling. When Winna returned to the Hesla agent's lounge, Yi Fan smiled and asked, "What did you find?" Winna drank a mouthful of water to moisten her dry throat. She said in a deep voice that Han Xiao is not someone to be trifled with. Han Xiao, Yi Fan recalled from the description of his appearance. That guy had been very low-key ever since he got off the bus. It seemed that he only had a weird expression when he heard my name. A weird person, Yi Fan concluded. After Han Xiao finished smoking, he stepped on the cigarette butt and walked back to the lounge. Chi Bai Jia looked over and suddenly asked, "Did anything happen?" "Yes, I just saw a sow fall into the ditch." Chi Bai Jia was embarrassed. "Can you be more serious?" "Then it's fine." Han Xiao dug his ears. Since it was just a test, he didn't want everyone to know about it. Firstly, it was for the sake of the mission. Secondly, he felt that there was no need to let his emotions affect his decisions. In his mind, there were three types of enemies. The first type were those who were motivated by personal feelings or had infringed on his interests. The second type were those who wanted to kill him and threatened his life. The third type were mortal enemies. Not only did they have hatred, but they also had conflicts of interests. The Germinal Organization was such a case. Facing the Germinal Organization, the enemy with the highest priority, personal feelings had to wait in the waiting list. Chi Baijia looked at Han Xiao deeply. His seat was near the window, so he could see the door. He had seen everything that happened just now. He had experienced many missions and knew that the agents of other countries would definitely test and show off their strength. This was almost an unspoken rule. The agents were all proud and arrogant. If they didn't show their strength, they wouldn't have the right to speak. If they complained to their superiors, they would be laughed at. Chi Baijia had a look of approval in his eyes. He was very satisfied with Han Zhao's performance just now. He did not lose his prestige, and he was very happy that Han Xiao kept the secret. He thought to himself, this guy's strength and ability to see the big picture are both very good. They didn't fight. After listening to the report from the adjutant, Carl nodded with satisfaction. Very good. It seems that the Star Dragon people know whose territory this is. Soon, it was time to depart. Everyone arrived at the border exit. Yi Fan, Winna, and more than 10 agents were ready to go. The first stop of the mission was a location very far away from Crow Forest Town. There was an unused secret base of Hesla there that would be used as a temporary base. The vehicles assigned to Division 13 were sent by train. They were all normal off-road vehicles. Only Han Zhao's Hay was different. It carried his teammates and set off with a rumble. This time he drove steadily. Li Lin was so touched that she was about to cry. The other 3 teammates, squeezed in the driver's seat, were confused. They couldn't understand why Li Lin looked like she had just survived a disaster. The journey took about half a day. Hesla's fleet led the way in front, and Division 13 followed behind. Suddenly, Hesla's fleet accelerated and gradually increased the distance between them. Seeing this, Disu Su and Ma Qinyang also sped up to catch up. Only Han Xiao drove to He and followed behind at a leisurely pace. "Brother Xiao, let's hurry up and catch up," Lin Yao said hurriedly. Han Xiao held the steering wheel with one hand and put the other hand outside the window. He said casually, "What's there to chase? No matter how fast they run, they will still have to slow down and wait for me." "That's right." Disu Su's laughter could be heard over the radio. "Little Lin Lin, where are you? Hurry up and catch up. Could it be that Brother Han Zhao's driving skills are not good enough?" "It's a waste of gas," Han Xiao said concisely. Disu Su was stunned. It was the first time she had heard such a refreshing excuse. Why would agents care about gas? Ma Qin Yang said over the radio, "Old Zhang, this is Hesla's demonstration." Chapter 74. The car was parked outside, and everyone moved the equipment into the secret base. The pre-battle meeting began. "We have 2 missions. First, disguise ourselves as wanderers and infiltrate Crow Forest Town to gather intel. Second, find the Germinal Organization sentries nearby and interrogate them about the situation at Dark Crow Valley Base." Winna immediately said, "We will deal with the sentries. You guys go to Crow Forest Town." Disu Su frowned. There might be Germinal Organization spies hiding in Crow Forest Town, and there was a risk of being exposed. It was not easy to gain anything. It was easier to obtain intel from the sentries, and it was safer for them. Hesla's people could not wait to hand over the dangerous and difficult mission to Division 13. This attitude made the people of Division 13 unhappy, but the mission had to be completed. No one objected. Chi Bai Jia said, To infiltrate Crow Forest Town, we have to disguise ourselves as wanderers first. Then, we have to find an opportunity to gather intel secretly. We must not alert the enemy. After a discussion, they decided to leave some people in the secret base. For people stayed behind: Lin Yao, Qi Baijia, Ma Qingyang, and Han Xiao. On the other hand, Hesla also left a few people in the secret base. Han Xiao only recognized Yi Fan among them. It was afternoon, and Hesla's people decided to rest first. They would set off to look for the sentries at dawn. That was the time when the enemy was most relaxed. They were equipped with thermal imaging devices, and the darkness was advantageous to them. They also wanted Division 13 to scout for mines first. After finalizing the plan, the agents from Division 13 who had decided to infiltrate formed a team with Di Su Su as the leader. All of them changed into rogues' outfits. They hunched their backs, looking as though they were being pressured by an invisible force. Their disguises were very convincing. They carried a huge backpack and walked towards the Crow Forest. There were many computer screens in the secret base that were connected to the images and earphones of the agents. Han Xiao, Lin Yao, and Qi Baijia took turns to monitor the screens. Not long after, Di Su Su and the rest arrived at Crow Forest Town. The screen showed the appearance of a small town with all kinds of buildings. Although the houses were small and shabby, they were densely populated. It was like a market. The town was not small, and it had everything. There were even hotels that were open to welcome guests. Let's find a place to stay first. Di Su Su and the rest were interrogated by the locals. She answered fluently and pretended to be a group of migrating wanderers. Coincidentally, they were passing by and hoped to rest for a few days. After getting rid of the interrogation, they stayed in a hotel in the town. After entering the room, everyone immediately displayed their professionalism and checked the room for surveillance cameras and bugs. After confirming that everything was safe, they began to discuss the next step of the plan. What should we do next? Li Lin curled her lips and looked at Di Su Su with disdain. Di Su Su was not in the mood to tease Li Lin. She frowned and said seriously, "Our identities are still suspicious. It's best for us to stay put for now." Han Xiao suddenly said in the earpiece, "You'd better act tonight." Reason? Di Su Su raised her eyebrows slightly. "You're now a group of foreign wanderers. Play your role well and inquire about the local situation. If you deliberately hide, your actions will be abnormal and will easily expose your ulterior motives." That makes sense. Everyone looked at each other. Let's do as Han Xiao says. There were entertainment facilities in the town, such as a small casino, a shop selling psychotropic drugs, a restaurant, and facilities to relieve physical needs. At night, everyone would go out in twos and threes and pretend to be normal. They would ask for information and collect information, but they did not find anything substantial. Most of the residents here were normal wanderers, and they did not find any suspicious targets. Qi Baijia's face was solemn. The other party is too secretive. It will be difficult to find anything. Not necessarily. Han Xiao smiled. He knew that there was a special spy in Crow Forest Town. Players could choose to join the germinal organization after completing missions to gain favorability. As long as they caught this NPC, they would be able to get a lot of information. Han Xiao knew the exact location of the Dark Crow Valley base, but he did not know the exact military strength. It was too small. After more than 10 years, he only had a vague impression of such details. Furthermore, the time was different now, and Han Xiao was not sure if there were any changes. Therefore, it was necessary to gather information. Go to the south of the town. There is a casino. There should be a ball man inside. That person knows about the Dark Crow Valley base. The person Han Xiao was talking about was the germinal organization's spy in Crow Forest. Players who were born in Crow Forest could only join the germinal organization through him. Everyone was stunned. Di Su Su frowned and asked, "Where did you get this information?" "I naturally have my ways." "What if the information is wrong?" Di Su Su did not give up. "Listen to him," Qi Baijia interrupted. Before they left, his superior had told him to trust Han Xiao. It was obvious that the superiors valued Han Xiao. Di Su Su could only suppress her doubts and listened to the order. She led the team to the small casino in the south and secretly asked around. Indeed, they found a bald man. He was the dealer of the casino. What should we do now? If we act rashly, we will alert the enemy. Who knows if there are accomplices around? Di Su asked. Han Xiao said helplessly, "Why are you asking me when you have already found him? Can't you show some professionalism?" Di Su's chest tightened. She was so angry that she cannot speak. However, she also realized that she had asked a stupid question. She snorted angrily and called for her teammates to secretly surround Han Xiao. Han Xiao looked at the time and got up to take over Lin Yao's night shift. He did not need to monitor the specific operation. If there were any accidents, the Secret Service agents should just kill themselves. At the same time, Winna left with the Hesla agents. Before she left, she did not forget to give Han Xiao a dirty look. Han Xiao did not intend to rest in the stronghold. He walked out of the stronghold and returned to Big Black's cargo compartment. The 2 reconnaissance missions were team missions. If there were no accidents, he should be able to complete them. Therefore, he should focus on his personal mission. If he wanted to assassinate the sentry in the jungle, he would need some small tools. Han Xiao took out the parts and focused on the interface. Do you want to proceed with knowledge fusion, basic wide area perception, plus basic bionics, plus basic mechanical engineering? This fusion will cost 15,000 EXP. Congratulations on developing small arthropod detector Spider. Winna and her team were wearing night vision goggles and camouflage suits. They walked quietly in the jungle like hunters in the dark forest, looking for their prey. They would only encounter the sentry when they were close to the Dark Crow Valley base. There was a master tracker in the team who could determine the road conditions from a day ago based on the traces in the jungle. This tracking master was called Majinu, and he was a tall and sturdy shinobi. His body was like a small mountain, and very few people would think that he was a meticulous person. At this time, he rubbed the dirt, put it to the tip of his nose, and sniffed it. He closed his eyes and thought for a while, then said, 7 hours ago, a person, male, weighing about 180 pounds, heading southwest. Winna did not doubt Majinu's judgment. She led her team carefully toward the direction. Suddenly, she stopped. The thermal imaging device showed that there was a life form squatting on a tree 300 meters away. Check the surroundings. Winna was very calm. She did not act rashly. She asked her teammates to check if there were any hidden sentry or surveillance devices nearby. After 20 minutes, she confirmed that everything was safe. Take him down, Yi Fan ordered through the communication device. Winna suddenly moved. A dark red glow flashed under her feet. She quickly and quietly approached the sentry within 100 meters. With the help of the trees, she hid herself in the sentry's blind spot. She was like a master assassin. She flipped over a tree like a cat. Her palms were also glowing with a dark red glow. She was like an octopus clinging to the trunk of a tree. She kept leaping, suppressing the sound of the wind as she approached the sentry in the air. Chapter 75. 10 minutes later. Kacha. Magnu broke the soldier's neck. They had obtained the information they wanted. Winna said through the communication device, "We have obtained preliminary information. The security perimeter of the base is divided into 6 zones. This is the outermost perimeter. Every perimeter has a sentry post, and an officer is in charge of all the sentries in the area. According to the interrogation earlier, the officer can log into the base's intranet. Therefore, as long as we reach the sentry post, we can use the officer's computer to browse the base's intranet and collect detailed information about the enemy. This soldier has already revealed the location of the base. There is no time to lose. I request that we act immediately." Yi Fan sighed. There was a system for changing shifts at the sentry post. It would take at most 24 hours for the enemy to discover that the sentry post had been killed. However, as long as they could get the information, it did not matter if they were exposed. The invasion of Hesla's army could not be hidden from the enemy. What they needed to do was to find out the defensive measures and military strength of the Dark Crow Valley base. However, if Winna's operation succeeded, the Division 13 agents in Dark Crow Forest Town would be exposed. The death of the sentry post and the invasion of the town happened on the same day. Even if the Division 13 agents did not have time to commit the crime, the enemy would still suspect them. At this moment, Yi Fan made a rational decision. Operation approved. Head to the enemy's base immediately. Winna nodded, got rid of the corpse, and led the team into action. Yi Fan heaved a sigh of relief and looked away from the screen. He looked at the office of Division 13 and shook his head slightly. His decision had nothing to do with pleasure. It was all for the sake of the mission. He would inform Division 13 later. Who did not want to risk their life? Before dawn, Winna and the rest found the sentry post. It was a very secluded hut in the forest. It looked like a hunter's base. The team quietly approached the hut. Magnu took out a sonar detector from his backpack and placed it on the outer wall of the hut. After activating the detector, a black and white image appeared. There were 3 targets in the detector. One was lying on the sofa, and the other 2 were sitting at the table. They seemed to be having supper. Winna raised her finger and counted down silently. 3, 2, 1. Winna jumped up and broke through the window. Her teammates followed closely behind. The 3 enemies did not expect an enemy invasion. They were so shocked that they jumped up. Before they could yell or pull out their pistols, they were knocked down by 3 shots from the well-trained Hesla agents. The Hesla agents immediately searched the room and the 3 men's clothes. They found a secret compartment in the wall with a safe inside. Another agent found an identity card on the body of an unconscious enemy. The card clearly stated that the person was a military officer. That's the target. Winna was overjoyed. This man was the officer in charge of the sentry post. She looked at his ID card and saw that his name was Roman. He was a black man. The agent tied Roman up and then injected him with a sobering agent. When he slowly woke up, Magnus slapped him to speed up his recovery. He said in a low voice, "Tell me the password to the safe if you don't want to die." Roman was frightened by the group of fully armed agents in front of him. He hurriedly confessed, not showing the slightest bit of loyalty. After keying in the password, the safe was successfully opened. There was a specially made laptop inside, which was not any brand on the market. When the laptop was turned on, there was a login interface that required an identity card and a password. Roman was very cooperative. He entered the interface through his account. Following a cheerful ringtone, a line of welcome appeared on the laptop. Dang, 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 dang. The German organization's idiotic operation assistant is at your service. Yi Fan, who was drinking coffee, spat it out. All the Hesla agents' faces twitched. This did not match the style at all. So naughty. Yi Fan did not know if he should spit it out. Various menus appeared on the interface. Roman's access was low, so he could only browse a small part of the menu. Winna and the rest saw the locked logs of the base and were slightly excited. These logs contained all the information about the base. Let me do it. Yi Fan ordered Magnus to plug a chip into the computer. In the base, the screen in front of Yi Fan was synchronized with the computer. Yi Fan's face suddenly became serious. His hands were like butterflies dancing in the air as he typed furiously on keyboard. First layer of firewall, cracked. Second layer of firewall, cracked. Third layer of firewall, cracked. Internal dynamic password, cracked. Access restrictions, cracked. Yi Fan smiled slightly. He was an experienced hacker in Hesla. He had hundreds of different kinds of viruses in his hands. Except for some monsters on the dark web and the great disconnection technique, no one could stop him from hacking. In less than 3 minutes, all the locked files were opened. At this time, the enemy hackers finally reacted and started to delete the files frantically. On the other hand, Yi Fan quickly backed up the files. Both parties were racing against time. Soon, all the files were deleted. Yi Fan's laptop was not fast enough. Even though he was very skilled, he could only back up 28% of the files. The base usually started from the classified files first. However, it was enough. The files that Yi Fan had obtained included the distribution of the base's defense measures, internal structure, military terrain, and a large number of logs. It's done. Come back. Yi Fan heaved a sigh of relief. The stolen information would definitely alert the Dark Crow Valley base. However, with the information in hand, it did not matter if they were exposed. However, Yi Fan felt that something was off. It seemed a little too smooth. Sir, the external network has been hacked. In the intelligence control room of the Dark Crow Valley base, there were many computer screens all over the place, said a staff member. The deputy supervisor of the base, GG, was a tall and skinny man with a gloomy face. He walked to the screen calmly and said slowly, "What data has been stolen?" "The base's experiment logs, the internal structure of the base's coordinates, the base's sentry duty changing records." The staff member reported more than 10 key pieces of information. Although the network had been hacked, no one in the base showed any signs of panic. Could the intruder be from Hesla? "The bait has been thrown out. We're just waiting for the fish to take the bait." GG's lips curled into a mocking smile. He was like a hunter who had just seen his prey fall into the trap. GG went to the supervisor's office and reported to Pan Kwong. "Just now, a hacker has hacked into the external camouflage network. I think it is from Hesla. We might be attacked by the military in the future." Pan Kwong used a handkerchief to wipe a long black knife. The long knife was as cold as autumn. The body of the knife was straight and thick. The handle of the knife was wrapped with cloth. From the dried bloodstains on the knife, one could tell that the knife had been used for many years and had taken many lives. Pan Kwong focused on wiping the knife as if there was nothing else in his eyes. He did not even raise his head. He only asked, "What do you think we should do?" GG cleared his throat and said, "Although the enemy has only obtained the bait, the existence of the base has been exposed. I suggest that we ask the leader to evacuate the base and take all the resources and information with us. Before we evacuate, we should try our best to kill as many of the enemy's forces as possible." "Okay," Pan Kwong said calmly. "If you need me to fight, just let me know." Chapter 76. Reconnaissance I completed. You have received 3,000 experience points. Han Xiao was awakened by the notification on the interface. He looked out of the window. It was dawn, and the sky was starting to brighten. Blue and gray mixed together. Han Xiao had only slept for 2 hours the previous night to build the new machine. He took out a bottle of water and wet his face. The refreshing feeling woke him up. He walked out of the cargo compartment and entered the base. Lin Yao had been working all night. Chi Bai Jia was taking a nap on the sofa next to Lin Yao. He had also woken up. "What did you get last night?" Han Xiao asked. Lin Yao said weakly, "That bald man told us about his accomplices hiding in Crow Forest Town. We captured a group of criminals and found out the exact location of the Dark Crow Valley base. However, they were all peripheral members and did not know much about the base. That's all we got." Han Xiao nodded. This was within his expectations. Otherwise, Reconnaissance 2 would have been completed. Are they still in hiding? Yes. They're on standby in Crow Forest Town. There is no more value there. We can retreat now, Han Xiao said. Chi Bai Jia, who was eating military rations for breakfast, rolled his eyes and said, "Have you forgotten that I am the commander?" Han Xiao was surprised. "Aren't you supposed to be our scapegoat?" Chi Bai Jia choked on his rations and coughed. He was speechless. Just as he was about to retort, Yi Fan walked over. "Everyone from Division 13, our men have obtained the exact location of the Dark Crow Valley base. The mission is complete." Chi Bai Jia was shocked. It had not even been a day, and the Hesla agents had already completed the mission. Their efficiency was amazing. "Did you really obtain all the information about the Dark Crow Valley base?" Yi Fan nodded. "Winna and her men even captured a witness. Our mission is complete. Withdraw your men. Let's sort out the information together and send it to the army." Han Xiao frowned. The interface did not show that Reconnaissance 2 was completed. He asked, "Are you sure that the information is true? Can you tell us the details of the mission?" "Of course." Yi Fan briefly explained the operation of Winna and her men. Han Xiao pondered and said, "Don't you think it went too smoothly?" "Yes, but there was nothing suspicious. It could only mean that the enemy's vigilance was too low. Don't forget that we launched a surprise attack on them." "I don't think so. Being suspicious is a good thing, but being suspicious without evidence is overkill." Yi Fan frowned and said decisively, "Anyway, we'll prepare to leave tomorrow morning." We'll move together. Looking at Yi Fan's back, Han Zhao's face darkened. He was 100% sure that there was something fishy about the information Yi Fan had obtained. However, he recalled Yi Fan's description of the operation. Winna and the other agents were only a little too aggressive, but they did not make many mistakes. There was only one possibility. There was something else going on in the Dark Crow Valley base. Han Zhao did not have any evidence. Even if he voiced his suspicions, others would not believe him, just like Yi Fan. Conjecture could not be trusted. Looks like I have to check it out myself. In the morning, Su and Winna returned to the base together. Both sides had brought back captives as witnesses. Roman was a cadre officer. He was more valuable than Su's captives. Winna had a victorious smile on her face. In her eyes, this mission was a competition between the agents of both sides. Hesla had defeated Division 13 perfectly. The agents of Division 13 were enraged by the victorious attitude of the Hesla agents. Leah Lin said indignantly, "If we had changed the mission, you would have lost." Winna sneered. "The result has been decided. A loss is a loss. A win is a win." Han Zhao walked over and said, "Your information might be fake." Regardless of whether they believed it or not, he still had to remind them. Winna's expression changed. She asked Han Zhao, "What evidence do you have?" Intuition. It was indeed an omnipotent reason. Everyone looked as if they had eaten a pound of *T. Winna was so angry that she laughed. "Then shut up. What's the weight of your speculation?" Han Zhao was not angry. Instead, he asked, "Do you have any evidence?" Winna patted Roman, who was trembling like a quail, and said, "This is my evidence." Han Zhao squatted down and looked at Roman carefully. Suddenly, he nodded, stood up, and walked away. Winna thought that he had given in and was elated. It seems that there is a powerful agent in the Dark Crow Valley base. Han Zhao's expression was solemn. Roman's fear and will to live did not seem to be fake. This meant that he was not a loyalist who had purposely provided false information. Therefore, there was only one logical conclusion. The Dark Crow Valley base had not revealed the real information to these low-ranking officers. The sentries patrolling the perimeter were not only sentries, but also bait. The information that Yi Fan had hacked could have been manipulated. To find out the truth, he had to infiltrate the Dark Crow Valley base personally. A plan formed in Han Zhao's mind. However, he had to wait until nightfall. Everyone was interrogating the captives and sorting out the information. They would only leave the next morning. He still had one night. The moon was bright and the stars were few. Han Zhao said to his colleagues, "I'm going to stay in the car for a while." No one replied to him. Hesla did not bother to reply, and Division 13 did not bother to reply. Only Zhang Wei said helplessly, "Go ahead if you want to. No one is stopping you." Han Zhao nodded and walked out of the base. He returned to the cargo compartment and carried Lambert's anti-material rifle and all the necessary equipment. He then locked the door of the cargo compartment and looked around to make sure that no one was outside the base. He turned around and walked into the forest, disappearing into the darkness. He did not intend to inform his teammates. Chi Baijia would definitely not agree. It would only cause trouble for him. After trekking for almost half the night, Han Zhao finally arrived at his target location. He equipped himself with thermal imaging night vision goggles and an environmental protection suit. After confirming that there were no enemies around, he quietly dug a hole that could fit a person. After digging the hole, Han Zhao took out 4 mechanical spiders from his toolbox, placed them on the ground, and activated them. The mechanical spiders stood up and stood in front of Han Zhao, like a team of small scouts waiting to be dispatched. Small arthropod detector, spider small insect-like detector. This was a new blueprint that Han Zhao had created. It was a practical tool that could be used as a pair of eyes and ears. It was small in size, very secretive, and could be controlled remotely. It was equipped with a heat sensor that would automatically avoid heat sources and life forms when it was not controlled. It could be described as a walking surveillance camera. With the spider detector, he did not need to get close to the hidden sentries, which reduced the chances of being discovered. Han Zhao took out his tablet and compared the images of the 4 spider detectors. It did not take long for him to determine the location of a few hidden sentries. Most of them were hidden near the trees. He quickly outlined the distribution of the hidden sentries in his mind and planned out the most suitable assassination route. In the dark forest, Han Shao crept forward with his heavy sniper rifle, keeping his target within his shooting range. Lambert's heavy sniper rifle was equipped with a silencer, so the sound it made was only as loud as a finger hitting wood. In this quiet and dark forest, even an elite agent within 100 meters would be able to notice this small movement. However, Lambert's heavy sniper rifle had a range of 800 meters. This was also the reason why Han Shao had decided to use this weapon. Compared to taking out the hidden sentries one by one, long-range sniping was much safer and more convenient. It was worth it for him to activate the sniping branch. Han Shao held his breath and focused. He put the target into the scope, and the distance of a few hundred meters did not seem to exist in his eyes. The feeling of being able to shoot with ease surfaced in his heart. Crosshair head. Wind direction, 8 o'clock. Wind speed, 1.3. Deviation, 43 millimeters. Elevation angle, advance angle. Calibration completed. Han Shao suddenly pulled the trigger. The recoil from the rifle caused his body to tremble slightly. He used his great strength to control the sniper rifle without the slightest deviation. Chapter 77. When a sniper hit the head, it was like a watermelon being smashed by a sledgehammer. Han Shao used the spider detector to adjust his position and shoot steadily. One by one, he eliminated the sentries, and the kill notifications appeared on his interface. Sneak attack, critical hit plus 200%. Fatal hit. This attack is considered a fatal hit. You have dealt 190 damage to the enemy. You have killed the Germinal Organization Sentinel. You have gained 500 EXP. Sneak attack, critical hit plus 200%. Fatal hit. This attack is considered a fatal hit. You have dealt 201 damage to the enemy. You have killed the Germinal Organization Sentinel. You have gained 500 EXP. These sentries were around LV-10, and they were all normal soldiers. Their strength was about the same as the guards when Han Shao escaped from the laboratory. At that time, he could already trample the guards, and now it was even easier. One by one, the sentries were killed, and Han Shao gained thousands of EXP. Dark Forest Assassin completed. You have gained 18,000 EXP. The mission was completed quite smoothly. After killing so many sentries, there should be people coming soon. Oh, they're coming. The spider detector showed that 3 fully armed rapid response teams were driving over from afar. After getting off the car, they started searching in all directions. The sentries were equipped with earphones and were connected to the communication network. If one was assassinated silently, it would take some time for them to be discovered. However, if the sentries went silent, it would immediately attract the attention of the Dark Crow Valley base, and they would immediately send out teams to search. Han Shao had expected such a situation. When the search team found the hidden sentries who had their heads blown up one by one, they would probably search the surroundings like wild dogs in heat on no crazy dogs. Through the spider detector that he had hidden in the tree, he saw that the teams were equipped with Jason submachine guns, high explosive grenades, and RPG rocket launchers. He immediately gave up on the idea of gaining another wave of EXP. Then again, he did not intend to fight head-on. It was better to run. Han Shao folded the heavy sniper and put on the camouflage suit that was covered with weeds and leaves. He moved stealthily and returned to the place where he dug the hole. He put the extra equipment into the toolbox and threw the heavy sniper into the hole. However, he did not fill the hole yet. When he was done, 3 search teams found the hidden sentry who had been shot in the head. The armed guards immediately carried their submachine guns equipped with flashlights and carefully spread out to search. Next to the pit was a big tree. Han Shao hid behind the tree and confirmed the enemy's position through the spider detector. He took out a thin piece of strong steel wire and wrapped it around his glove. He leaned against the tree and held his breath as he waited. Thud, thud, thud. The sound of footsteps grew closer and closer. There was only one person who was gradually approaching the tree that he was hiding in. The location that Han Xiao had chosen was carefully chosen. It happened to be at the edge of the alert range. The further away it was, the more scattered the enemies would be. There was a high chance that only one enemy would come to search. The flashlight shone from the side of the tree. Han Xiao slowly crouched down and tightened the thin steel wire on his hands. He gathered strength in his legs and was like a praying mantis, ready to jump out at any time. The moment the armed guard's feet crossed the tree, Han Xiao moved. He went around the other side of the tree, like a ghost, and quickly came behind the armed guard. The armed guard had already heard his footsteps. In shock, he wanted to turn around and open fire. He opened his mouth and was about to call for help. However, Han Xiao was one step faster. He put the steel wire around the armed guard's neck from behind and tightened in an instant, causing the armed guard to choke back his cry for help. Then, Han Xiao used his knee to push away the submachine gun in the armed guard's hand. He then took 2 steps back and dragged the armed guard to the ground with his hands. The enemy's upper body leaned against Han Xiao's knees. The suffocating pressure caused the armed guard's face to quickly turn purple. He wanted to pull the thin steel wire away, but the steel wire was already embedded in his flesh. His back was facing Han Xiao. His hands moved wildly, but he couldn't grab hold of Han Xiao at all. His eyes gradually turned white. Han Xiao maintained the strength in his hands until the kill notification appeared on the interface. Only then did he let go of his hands. From the beginning to the end, he didn't let the armed guard make a sound. Han Xiao quickly took off the armed guard's clothes and put them on himself. The armed guard was a Caucasian and was about the same height as him. He quickly used a knife to trim his hair, then raised his collar and tightened his sleeves to cover all the skin that could be exposed. This was to prevent others from discovering that his skin color was not right. Then, he pressed his finger between his eyebrows and activated the switch of the face simulator. A triangular scanning ray shot out from between his eyebrows and quickly scanned the armed guard's face. Scanning simulation. Han Xiao's face suddenly changed, and in an instant, he looked exactly like the armed guard. This was his trump card to infiltrate the Germinal organization. After throwing the armed guard's naked body and the replaced equipment into the hole, he quickly filled it up with soil and made a secret mark. Then, Han Xiao put on the Germinal organization's uniform and swaggered out. Through his earpiece, he could hear the enemy's communication through the communication network. H103 reporting no abnormalities in the northwest. H141 reporting no abnormalities in the southeast. The number of the unlucky guy that he had replaced was H222. Han Xiao lowered his voice and repeated the same thing as the other guy. H223, what's wrong with your voice? The person who seemed to be his superior spoke. My throat hurts. After pretending to search for a while, Han Xiao was summoned back. More than 20 armed guards gathered around the car, so he didn't arouse any suspicion. The person who seemed to be the captain asked, "Didn't you find anything?" "No," everyone said in unison. The captain frowned. "Get in the car. Return to the base." Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. This was similar to his plan. He could sneak into this team and follow them directly to the Dark Crow Valley base. The car drove into an inconspicuous cave. After driving for about 3 minutes, the scenery in front of them opened up. There was another world in the cave. It was a small parking lot. The car stopped, and everyone alighted. Han Xiao followed the team forward and came to a stone wall that looked very normal. The captain stretched out his hand and pried open a stone. This stone was actually a disguise. It was a metal box with a card reader hidden in it. The captain took out his ID card and swiped it. The stone wall suddenly opened up. Han Xiao realized that the stone wall was actually a metal door. It was sprayed with a layer of realistic stone-colored coating. It was so realistic that it could be mistaken for the real thing. If one didn't look closely, they wouldn't have noticed it. This is strange. This is similar to the information that Hessler received. Han Xiao was confused. These scenes were all written in Yi Fan's information, and they were all correct. Moreover, they were the same as the screenshots and posts that he remembered from the players. Why didn't the interface say that Reconnaissance 2 was completed? What went wrong? Could it be that the Dark Crow Valley base at this time was more mysterious? Han Xiao followed the team forward. Along the way, they passed through 2 security checkpoints. He used his ID card to enter the Dark Crow Valley base. This was a secret underground base. The structure was mainly made of steel. Everywhere was a cold gray color, which added to the solemn atmosphere. The corridors were winding, and there were many rooms. Members of the Germinal organization walked in and out as if they were busy transporting supplies. Han Xiao looked up and saw a surveillance camera at the corner of the ceiling. He couldn't help but shrink his neck. I can be considered to be a lone army going deep into enemy territory with a single blade. Second Master, please protect me. I've successfully infiltrated. What should I do next? Should I wander around or find someone to ask? No. I might expose myself if I ask. I don't know what kind of information is the target. Can I only rely on my luck? No, since the requirement of Reconnaissance 2 is to find out specific information about the Dark Crow Valley base, there must be something strange here. If the information given by the low-ranking officers is bait, then the members here probably don't know anything about it. Therefore, I have to be careful of those who act differently from the others. As this thought flashed through his mind, Han Xiao started to walk and observe his surroundings. 13 sentries were killed. GG frowned. In his opinion, the enemy should have believed the fake information given by the external network. Why did they attack the sentries again? Was it to test the authenticity of the information? It seemed that the intruders were more cautious than he thought. GG shook his head. But they are still too inexperienced. The 2-level network was a trap set by GG when he was the deputy manager of the base. It was to prevent intruders from coming into contact with them. Now it was finally showing its effect. Pure fake information would be exposed at first glance. In order to increase the authenticity of the information, GG did not hesitate to use the lies of his own people as bait. The bait contained some real information, which included the exact location of the base and the distribution of all the sentries and fortifications from the 3rd to the 6th level. Only by mixing the real information with the fake would the enemy fall into the trap. The firepower of the last 2 levels of defense was more than 10 times stronger. Furthermore, there was another trump card. The leader has agreed to arrange the evacuation route. The reinforcements will arrive in 5 days. We can evacuate by then. Before that, let's give Hesla a big gift. The main force of the Germinal organization was located in the mainland of Andria. The hundreds of branches and bases in other continents were all tentacles of the organization. They were secretly developing and expanding, accumulating resources for the organization, and becoming the hidden nail in the enemy's territory. It was not the time to be exposed yet. Once they were discovered, they would have to evacuate to prevent losses. A single base could not withstand the endless military power of the 6 nations. Chapter 78. When infiltrating a base, the more nervous one was, the easier it was to be exposed. Han Xiao had experience in infiltration. He was calm and collected, and he did not attract any attention. After wandering around the base for a while, he gradually understood the structure of the base. The base was hidden in the middle of the mountain. It was not small, at least 5 or 6 times larger than the laboratory that he had stayed in before. There were 2 exits. One was the main entrance, and the other was a side door that was directly connected to the outside world. It was convenient for personnel to enter and leave alone. For some reason, Han Xiao felt that something was wrong in the base, but he could not pinpoint what was wrong. Most of the people had a serious expression on their faces as they hurriedly moved the important supplies. Have you heard? The higher-ups want us to evacuate. It seems that the Hesla people have discovered us. The higher-ups said that the scouts in Crow Forest Town have lost contact. It seems that a war is about to break out. After turning a corner, Han Xiao heard voices. A few armed guards were gathered together and talking. They sounded worried. When they saw Han Xiao, one of them shouted, "Hey, Talamander, did you guys find anything when you went out to search?" Talamander was the real name of H-223. He was a Caucasian. Han Xiao wrapped himself tightly in his uniform, so his skin color could not be seen. These few guards seemed to know Talamander. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. The sentry posts outside were shot in the head by a sniper rifle. There was no enemy. "I guess this is the work of the Hesla people," he said. The guard were worried. They were armed personnel. If the enemy attacked, they would have to stop them. "I'm so envious of the civilian staff. They can evacuate first," one of the guards said angrily. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. The evacuation of the Dark Crow Valley base was expected. After all, they were facing the official army of Hesla, and this was only a sub-base. It was impossible for all of them to stay and fight to the death. However, it was not an easy task to evacuate. With so many people, they would leave traces in the forest and be tracked by the Hesla army. Therefore, some of the armed personnel had to stay behind to fight the enemy. The officers and civilian staff had to evacuate first with the important supplies. Some confidential supplies were more important than people. The remaining armed personnel would only receive the order to evacuate when the officers were out of danger. The ultimate goal of the faction mission was to destroy the Dark Crow Valley base. That included the enemy's forces. If they were to only occupy an empty base, the mission completion rate would be very low. Han Zhao suddenly realized a problem. Why didn't the base evacuate when they knew about Hesla's invasion? Yi Fan invaded last night, and it's been 24 hours. It should be enough time for them to retreat. Something's wrong. At this time, a burly man walked over and shouted, "What are you all doing? Don't you have anything to do? Go and carry the things." The few guards hurriedly apologized in fear and trepidation. Han Zhao's eyes lit up. This officer was the base's guard captain, Duo Meng, a tall and sturdy Sharnik. What secrets did the base hold? Such a core figure would definitely know. After Duo Meng berated him a few times, he turned around and left. Han Zhao followed him from a distance. After turning a few corners, he was suddenly stunned. Duo Meng had actually disappeared. He had only left his line of sight for 2 seconds. There was no one in this corridor except for a utility room. Han Zhao walked over and twisted the doorknob. There was no lock on the door. He pushed the door open and walked in. There was no one inside, only a pile of miscellaneous items. The lights were not turned on, and the light from the corridor outside shone in through the gap of the door. Han Zhao suddenly frowned as he realized something was wrong. The utility room was spotless, and there were no footprints on the floor. Logically speaking, very few people would be in the utility room. Even 5-star hotels were too lazy to organize cleaners every day, so it was even more impossible for the Germinal organization to do so. Han Zhao was sure that there was a secret door here. Otherwise, Duo Meng would not have disappeared into thin air. However, he could not find a location of the secret door. What would be behind the secret door? Suddenly, Han Zhao covered his mouth and coughed. While he was bending down, he took out the only spider detector he had on him and threw it to the corner of the storage room. Then, he quickly left the storage room and found a blind spot where there were no surveillance cameras. He took out his tablet and activated the spider detector to keep an eye on the storage room. This lasted for 2 hours, which was far beyond Han Zhao's estimation. He was extremely tense and felt a little tired. At this time, there was finally a change in the utility room. A metal door cracked open on one side of the wall, and 2 people walked out. They were not armed and seemed to be technicians. It is indeed a secret door. The 2 of them hurriedly left the utility room. Han Zhao quietly followed them. His eyes turned, and he quickened his pace. He bumped into the 2 from behind, and the 3 of them staggered. Sorry. Han Zhao hurriedly apologized and helped the 2 of them up. The 2 of them did not say anything. Han Zhao continued to follow the 2 of them. At this time, he had a white card in his hand. It was the ID card that one of them had put in his shirt pocket. Learn how to steal and travel the world. The card was exactly the same as a normal ID card, but Han Zhao felt that the chip inside was different. It had the authority to pass through the secret door. He followed the 2 of them all the way to the side door of the base. The 2 of them greeted the guards at the door and walked out. Han Zhao suddenly had a flash of inspiration. He finally knew what was wrong with this base. The atmosphere. Most of the people were nervous and worried that the Hesla army would launch a large-scale attack. However, a small number of people stayed at their posts and were not worried at all. It was as if they had something to rely on, which was different from the nervous people. If one did not pay close attention, it would be difficult to notice a small number of the latter. The two of them who had walked out of the secret door just now had a look of confidence. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes. He had a guess, but he still needed to verify it. When he came to the side door, the guard stopped him. You are not allowed to enter or leave the base without a mission. Han Xiao took out the stolen ID card and said, I bumped into the two of them just now, and they dropped this ID card. I will give it to them before they go too far. The guard nodded and let him go. Han Xiao walked out of the side door. Outside the base was a forest valley. It was already early in the morning. The two of them were only a few hundred meters away, and he could only see their small backs. He quickly chased after them. The two of them heard footsteps behind them and turned around. They were alert. You dropped your ID cards. When Han Xiao came closer, the two of them realized that Han Xiao was a colleague they had met in the base. They were relieved. The one who had dropped his ID card touched his pocket and said in surprise, When did you drop it? Thank you. What are you thanking me for? We are all revolutionary comrades who are working together to build a spiritual civilization. This is what I should do. Han Xiao walked closer with a smile. You are such an interesting person. One of them smiled. Just as he was about to reach out and take the ID card, Han Xiao's expression suddenly froze. He suddenly attacked and landed a heavy punch on the opponent's stomach. The force went through the opponent's flesh and shook the opponent's guts. The opponent's eyes widened, and he spat out a mouthful of bile. Before the other person could even scream, Han Xiao had already grabbed his neck with one hand, strangling his windpipe, and smashing his head onto the ground. Then, he slammed his palm into the ground and knocked the two ordinary people unconscious. Han Xiao took out his belt and tied the two of them together. He dragged them behind him and walked in a big circle to avoid the possible sentries. When he was far enough away from the base, he slapped the two of them to wake them up. The two of them woke up and said in horror, You are not from the base. Han Xiao unsheathed his retractable machete and stroked the blade with his fingers. I know you guys have some information that normal members don't know. Please tell me honestly, he said coldly. The two of them gulped and said, We low-level members don't know anything. Low-level members? Han Xiao laughed. He suddenly stabbed the knife and went straight for the lower part of one of them. The man was so scared that his soul almost left his body. He screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Suddenly, he realized that he didn't feel any pain. He lowered his head and saw the shiny blade rubbing against his inner thigh and stabbing into the soil. It was only 3 centimeters away from his little brother. The cold metal clearly transmitted to his crotch. I know that there is a secret door in the storage room. Tell me everything you know, or I will make you the first eunuch of the Germinal organization. Han Zhao's tone was murderous. Although the two of them did not know what eunuch meant, Han Zhao's actions showed what he was going to do. The two of them were shocked. How do you know about the secret door? I am the one asking the questions. Han Xiao raised his knife and slid the blade against the other person's private part. It was as if he was going to cut down at any time. The other person was so scared that he peed. F***, he really peed. My knife. The two of them were dejected. Since the secret had been found out, there was no point in hiding it. They told him the secret while trembling. 10 minutes later, Han Xiao frowned. So that's how it is. Chapter 79. Dawn, the secret base. It was time to evacuate. The agents from both sides packed up and prepared to leave. Brother Xiao, where is he? Lin Yao knocked on the door of the cargo compartment. He had been knocking on the door for 3 minutes, and the agents from Division 13 were getting impatient. He doesn't seem to be in the car. Where did he go? Liu Lin asked. Everyone looked at each other. Han Xiao had said that he would wait in the car, but now he was gone. Where did he go last night? Qi Baijia asked Zhang Wei's team. What are you going to do? We will stay and wait for him to come back, Zhang Wei said. Is that necessary? Di Su Su asked. The car keys are with him. Zhang Wei gritted his teeth. He felt that the veins on his forehead were about to turn into a dragon and fly away. Everyone's face twitched. They did not know if they were lucky or unlucky to have such a team member. Qi Baijia was unhappy. He hated all the uncertain factors in the mission. He thought that Han Xiao had a good grasp of the big picture, but now it seemed that he was blind. Team members who act without permission are all bastards. If something goes wrong, I will be the scapegoat. Scammer. On the other hand, the agent from Hesla noticed the behavior of the agents from Division 13 and discussed in secret. Someone from their team wants to stay. Didn't we agree to work together? Yi Fan frowned and went to ask Qi Baijia. After getting the answer, he returned to the Hesla agents and explained. Who is missing? It's the logistician with the mask. His name is Han Xiao. Oh, it's him. Wenna's face suddenly tensed up. She said, when we received the information yesterday, Han Xiao denied us without any evidence. He disappeared at night and did not leave a message. He did not return the entire night. This is very suspicious. Could he be a spy? The agents from Hesla were stunned. Be careful with your words. Yi Fan frowned. He did not believe this speculation, but Han Xiao's behavior was indeed suspicious. He said softly, when we return to the base, we will report the situation to the commander. The agents left, leaving only Zhang Wei and his team in the base. Where did Brother Xiao go? Lin Yao could not help but ask. Li Lin rolled her eyes. How would I know? He didn't say anything last night. Zhang Wei shook his head, feeling tired. That guy really doesn't have me in his eyes. A few hours later, the agents from both sides returned to the border. Wenna and Yi Fan immediately reported Carl. A Division 13 agent did not return for the entire night. Carl paced back and forth, his brows furrowed. Are you sure? Wenna nodded. He left without saying a word last night, right after we found out about the Dark Crow Valley base. Yi Fan added, although it's suspicious, it doesn't mean he's a spy. Carl nodded slowly. I will verify this with Star Dragon's people later. Let's talk about the intelligence first. Wenna said, the captives we brought back have been put through a lie detector test. It can prove that everything they say is true. Yi Fan personally hacked into the enemy's network to gather this information. We can guarantee its authenticity. Carl's eyes were sharp as he said, resolutely, then let's go to war immediately. Otherwise, the situation might change. Yi Fan hesitated for a moment before saying, if the army is deployed, the Division 13 agents who are still in the secret base will be in danger. Carl did not care at all. For the sake of our strategic goals, what's the harm in sacrificing 1 or 2 Star Dragon people? If they're not from our country, their intentions will definitely be different. At the same time, Han Xiao took a huge detour and finally brought the 2 captives back to the place where he buried the toolbox. The journey was extremely arduous, and he was so tired that he almost vomited blood. These 2 burdens did not have environmental concealment suits. He spent a few hours to bypass all the security zones. Fortunately, these 2 captives were technicians who were in charge of adjusting the detectors and mines. They provided him with a lot of information. Otherwise, he would not have been able to leave so quietly. The 2 captives tried to trick Han Xiao a few times along the way. They wanted to deliberately lure him into the security zone and expose him. However, they were seen through by Han Xiao and were severely punished. Only then did they give up and obey obediently. At this time, the sun was hanging high in the sky. Han Xiao calculated the time and sighed. Not good. It's past the estimated time. I think the others have already left. He dug out the toolbox, took out a communication device, and contacted Zhang Wei. Hello, Jiang. I'm Huang He. Please reply if you can hear me. Huang, your *SS. Zhang Wei's exasperated voice immediately sounded in the earpiece. Where did you go? I didn't see you for the whole night. The others have already left. We can only wait for you at the base. That's right. You have to compensate me. I want new equipment. Li Lin squeezed into the channel. Just by listening to her tone, Zhang Wei could imagine her pouting face. Why does she look so cute? Han Xiao shook his head and said, I snuck into the Dark Crow Valley base and found a piece of confidential information. Zhang Wei's face turned serious. I'll help you contact Staff Officer Qi. At the border military camp, Qi Baijia received a call and asked, Zhang Wei, what's wrong? Is Han Xiao back? I want to talk to you. Chi Jia said unhappily. Then let him explain it to me. Han Shao entered the channel and said, I found a secret. The Dark Crow Valley base is divided into an inner and outer base. The outer base is where the peripheral members work, while the inner base is where the core members live. The outer base is hidden deep in the mountain. The peripheral members don't even know about the inner base. The inner base is kept secret from all peripheral members. The inner base can be closed and blocked at any time. He interrogated the two captives and found out that the Dark Crow Valley base was divided into 2 layers. There was a deeper secret base hidden deep in a mountain where important resources were stored. That was the real core area. The base leaders did not disclose the existence of the inner base to the peripheral members. Most of the people in the base were also kept a secret. Even the players in his previous life did not know about the existence of the inner base. The inner base was connected to many evacuation routes. The core members could leave secretly. The locations of these routes were kept secret. Until the time of evacuation, no one knew which route the base leaders had chosen. Chi Jia immediately understood the value of this information. If Hesla did not know about the existence of the inner base, they would be fooled into thinking that they had one when the outer base was breached. Then they would retreat. In reality, the enemy's core forces would be unharmed. The inner base would be preserved, and they could move back secretly in the future to make it a more secretive stronghold. Chi Jia was secretly shocked. He did not expect that Han Zhao's unauthorized action would yield such crucial information. Ahem, although it was a good job, he still had to emphasize that unauthorized action was not a good thing to do. Wait for a while. I'll report to the commander immediately. Chi Jia requested to see Carl, but he was stopped by the adjutant. He waited anxiously for 5 minutes before he was granted an audience. He walked into the office and found Yi Fan and Winna there. Carl glanced at Chi Jia and asked, What's the matter? One of my team members has obtained confidential information. He needs to report it to you. Han Shao, it's him. Chi Jia nodded. He did not notice that Winna, Carl, and Yi Fan were looking at him strangely. Carl's eyes flickered. Speak. Hence, Han Shao repeated what he said through the communicator and added, If we attack recklessly, we will only be able to destroy an empty shell. I hope that we can delay the operation and let our people find out the enemy's evacuation time and route. We can also figure out the structure of the inner base. When the time comes, we can directly intercept the enemy's retreating troops and avoid attacking the enemy's fortifications head-on. Carl was expressionless when he heard that. He suddenly asked, Where did you get the information from? I disguised myself and infiltrated the Dark Crow Valley base. I captured 2 of the insiders. Carl suddenly shouted, You're lying. From Carl's point of view, it was impossible for Han Shao to complete the infiltration even if he disguised himself. It would take at least 10 minutes to make a realistic human skin mask. He did not know what kind of enemy he would encounter, so it was impossible for him to make the mask in advance. It was a paradox. It was like Xiao Ming climbed up a tree and realized that it was too high from the ground, so he went home to get a ladder and climbed down the tree. Han Shao was stunned. He then realized that these people did not know about the ability of the face simulator. The ability of the face simulator was his trump card. He would not reveal it, but that would not explain the details of his infiltration. This is my ability. Han Shao could only give an ambiguous answer. Unless you show it, it won't be convincing. Carl remained expressionless. He was secretly vigilant. Chapter 80. Han Shao furrowed his eyebrows. Do you have any evidence to back up your intel? Chi Jia tried to help. Of course, he trusted Han Shao. However, Hesla was in a different position, and there was a crisis of trust between both parties. Han Shao paused for a moment. I have 2 captives. You can send them to the lie detector, and you will know that I am right. Carl narrowed his eyes. Bring them back then. Chi Jia heaved a sigh of relief. Although he was curious about how Han Shao managed to infiltrate the base, he chose to believe that Han Shao had some special means. Fortunately, they had the captives as evidence to prove that Han Shao was not lying. After hanging up the call, Carl summoned his adjutant and said, "Pass down my order. Set off. Our target is the Dark Crow Valley base." Chi Bai Jia was stunned. This was different from what they had agreed on. Carl could not be bothered to explain. It would take a few hours for Han Xiao to bring the so-called captives over. If Han Xiao was late again, it would take even more time. If the Dark Crow Valley people took the opportunity to retreat, the army would not be able to make it in time. As a commander, he would not change his decision just because of some uncertain intel. He trusted Yi Fan's intel. There were witnesses, evidence, and reliable sources. Carl believed that even if Han Xiao was telling the truth, there would be no loss in sending the troops ahead of time. Han Xiao could still bring the captives over to join them. The difference was that sending the troops ahead of time would put the Dark Crow Valley base into a state of war, and Han Xiao's team would be in danger. However, what did the life and death of the Star Dragon agents have to do with him? Even if they died in battle, the higher-ups of Hesla would not pursue the matter. If Division 13 protested, there would be someone to stop them. Anyway, Han Xiao had already provided him with information about the base. Carl did not care if Han Xiao could prove it. As long as he could take over the Dark Crow Valley base, he would be able to follow this lead and verify it. Chi Bai Jia said angrily, "My men are still near the Dark Crow Valley base. If you attack without authorization, they will be in danger." Carl said calmly, "The opportunity is fleeting. We cannot delay it because of one or two agents. Since they are agents, they have to consider the big picture. I believe they will understand." "I don't agree," Chi Bai Jia said angrily. "It's not up to you." Carl pressed the bell, and a group of soldiers rushed in and pointed their guns at Chi Bai Jia. Carl said coldly, "Send Star Dragon's friend to the car. We will depart together later. Remove all communication devices from them. I don't want them to contact anyone and reveal our whereabouts." He emphasized the word friend, and the meaning was obvious. Chi Bai Jia trembled with anger. "Sai, how did it end up like this?" Yi Fan was speechless. Han Zhao's suggestion was conservative, while Carl's suggestion was more radical. Both of them were not wrong, but Carl was the commander, and Han Xiao was only a subordinate and not a direct descendant of Hesla. Winna looked on coldly. After ending the communication, Han Zhao's face sank. He had a faint intuition that Carl was a more radical commander and would probably send troops ahead of time. This person is too eager for quick success. Han Xiao sighed. He didn't have much time left. If he wanted to complete the mission, he had to rely on himself. Now, he only knew the existence of the inner base, but did not know the enemy's escape route and time. He needed more information, so he had to sneak in again. This time, he would use the identities of the two captives to enter the inner base. Han Xiao was not going to do it himself. For the sake of his own plan, sneaking in again was not the best choice. The most suitable candidate was Lin Yao, a hacker who could infiltrate the enemy's network. He was like a computer virus that could disrupt the enemy's communication network at critical moments, rendering the enemy blind and deaf. In that case, he would need to create human skin masks for the two captives. There were molds and makeup tools in the big black cargo compartment, so the disguises could be completed in an hour or two. With that in mind, Han Xiao forced himself to stay alert. He used up all his remaining energy and dragged the two captives forward. In the afternoon, they returned to the secret base. The team members who were waiting for them there greeted them. "Are you okay?" Lin Yao hurried over to support Han Xiao, who was almost out of energy. Han Xiao shook his head. "There's no time to waste. Listen to me. Make the human skin masks for the two captives now. Lin Yao and Lambert will use their identity cards to sneak into the inner base. I'll tell you the details later." Lin Yao's face turned pale. Brother Xiao, I don't have any experience in espionage. Can we get someone else? You're a hacker. If you don't go to hell, who will?" Lin Yao was petrified. "Let me take the other spot," Leah Lin volunteered. Han Xiao glanced at her and shook his head without hesitation. Leah Lin was furious. "What do you mean? Are you looking down on me?" Han Xiao pointed at her chest. "Too big. It's hard to wrap my arms around it." Leah Lin was petrified. Lin Yao hurriedly grabbed Han Xiao's sleeve. "Brother Xiao, do you want to come with me?" he asked hopefully. "No way. It's so dangerous. Cough. Such a simple mission. It's not challenging at all. You've definitely exposed something. Leah Lin and Lin Yao roared in their hearts. Let me do it then, Zhang Wei said. Han Xiao shook his head. No, no one can use the armor without you. Oh, right. You're still the captain. So you still remember that I'm the captain. Zhang Wei smiled bitterly. Ever since Han Xiao appeared, his position as the captain had become more and more like a figurehead. Han Xiao pointed at Lambert and said, I've decided on you, the Lambert beast. Lambert was speechless. *T, I'm dead meat, Lin Yao said in despair. Lambert was expressionless. He slapped the back of Lin Yao's head to express his dissatisfaction. What do you mean by that? Am I so different from Han Xiao? Everyone put on makeup for the two captives in the cargo compartment as they drove closer to the Dark Crow Valley base to save time. They parked the car outside the security perimeter. After more than an hour, Lambert and Lin Yao were done with their makeup. They looked exactly like the captives. With microphones in their ears, they held their ID cards and headed to the side entrance of the Dark Crow Valley base. Brother Xiao, are you sure you can do it? Lin Yao asked weakly through the earpiece. Sincerity is everything. Lin Yao felt like he was going to vomit blood. He looked at Lambert and asked, Uncle, aren't you afraid? For the sake of the mission, we have to try even if there's only a slim chance, Lambert said calmly. Han Xiao clapped. Well said. You're very loyal. Lambert was speechless. When they arrived at the side entrance, Lin Yao was so nervous that his teeth were chattering. Are we going to be exposed? Lambert pressed on Lin Yao's shoulder and said in a low voice, The more nervous you are, the more likely you'll be exposed. Lin Yao calmed himself down and swiped his ID card. The security guard opened the door. Seeing that there was no problem with the ID card, he stepped aside. The two of them followed the instructions and went to the storeroom. They found the ID card reader and used the ID cards of the captives to open the secret door, revealing a metal passageway. The passageway was very long. After walking for 10 minutes, they finally arrived at the inner base. The inner base was even more secure than the outer base. Computer screens were hung on the walls, and people were coming and going, carrying supplies and information. The two of them looked at each other. This time, they were really in the enemy's camp. Suddenly, an ear-piercing alarm sounded in the base, and the lights turned red. Lin Yao was scared out of his wits, thinking that they had been exposed. Lambert frowned and pressed down on Lin Yao's pale face. Calm down. We didn't trigger the alarm, he whispered. The inner base members whispered to each other. What happened? Is there an enemy invasion? Jia walked out with a calm face. Everyone be quiet. Hesla's border troops are on their way to the base. The outer base's armed personnel are already on their way to the security perimeter. We'll be able to hold them off for a while. Prepare to retreat. Chapter 81. As expected, Carl did not choose to wait. Instead, he sent his troops ahead of time. Zhang Wei slammed the table and cursed. Damn it. Brother Xiao, you helped them get the intel, but those people from Hesla don't care about our lives. Han Xiao, on the other hand, had expected this. His expression remained as calm as ever, which made the two of them wonder why he was so calm. Through the earpiece, he instructed Lin Yao and Lambert, You two continue to hide. Remember to protect yourselves while carrying out the mission. We're leaving. Understood. Zhang Wei and Leah Lin looked solemn. The heavy truck was not far from the Dark Crow Valley base. When the Dark Crow Valley was in a state of war, they would not hesitate to increase their defense. The tracks of the heavy truck will be discovered very soon. There was no time to waste. Leah Lin, go and drive. Leah Lin was a martial artist, and she lacked long-range attacks on high-speed vehicles. She had no objections to this arrangement. Han Xiao and Zhang Wei stayed in the cargo compartment, and they had the ability to counterattack. Leah Lin did not care about hiding her tracks. She stepped on the accelerator, and the engine of the heavy truck roared to life. The tires kicked up a cloud of dirt as they started to move. Soon, a series of engine sound could be heard from afar. Han Xiao looked out of the window and saw a large group of German organizations' armored off-road vehicles chasing after them. The headlights of the pursuers appeared in his field of vision. There were more than 10 of them, and they were equipped with mounted machine guns. "We've been discovered." Zhang Wei's heart sank. Han Xiao did not care about the bumpy ride of the heavy truck. He opened the weapon box and started to prepare his weapons. A chase was unavoidable. "Yilin, drive faster," Zhang Wei shouted. "I know." Li Yilin bit her lips and kept changing gears to increase the speed. The engine of the heavy truck was at full power, and it let out a beast-like roar. The huge anti-skid tires left deep ruts in the forest. The mountainous terrain was undulating, and the dirt road was rugged. Even though the chassis air spring suspension was able to reduce the vibration of the wheels time and time again, the car was still very bumpy. Han Xiao looked out of the cargo compartment's window. The German organization's armored off-road vehicles were getting closer. "Can't you go a little faster?" Zhang Wei urged. "This is a heavy truck, not a sports car." Li Yilin was exasperated. Han Xiao suddenly said, "There are 4 buttons next to the gear. All of them are nitrogen accelerators." "You installed a nitrogen accelerator on the heavy truck?" Li Yilin was stunned. Then she became excited and was about to press the button when Han Xiao hurriedly stopped her. "We're in the forest now. Aren't you afraid that the car will crash? Wait until we reach the plains before speeding up." The heavy machine guns on the dozens of off-road vehicles opened fire. The muzzles spewed out thick flames, and the bullets chased after them. The distance was long, so there was no accuracy to speak of. However, the range of the firepower was very wide. Trees were cut down one after another, and the stray bullets created countless sparks on the exterior armor of the cargo compartment. Li Yilin glanced at the rearview mirror, and in the next moment, the rearview mirror was shattered by a stray bullet. She cursed under her breath and maneuvered the heavy truck around the trees to avoid the bullets. The truck became very bumpy, and even but hurt from the jolting. The cargo compartment was even more chaotic, and the components were flying everywhere. Han Xiao hurriedly used the lock to secure the various equipment and weapons boxes. 2 bound captives were huddled in a corner, shivering. At dusk, the setting sun was as red as blood. Dozens of armored off-road vehicles were chasing after a black heavy truck. The heavy truck was running for its life, and the pursuers were chasing after it. Bullets were fired, and the sound of gunshots echoed through the forest. The sound of the engines of so many vehicles mixed together like a mad dragon, cruising through the forest at high speed. Even the wanderers in Crow Forest Town could faintly hear the movement, and they all looked at the source of the sound in shock. Closer and closer, closer and closer. Suddenly, a heavy truck rushed out of the forest and into Crow Forest Town. Like a rampaging rhinoceros, it crashed into a small building and directly smashed the building into ruins. The front of the truck was clearly deformed. The heavy truck roared through the streets, and the wanderers on the street were horrified. They quickly rolled and crawled to hide. When the heavy truck passed by, they finally dared to look at the back of the heavy truck, and their faces were filled with horror. Before they could start to talk, more off-road vehicles rushed into the town, and a large number of buildings were destroyed. Crackling sounds could be heard, and ruins were everywhere. A rain of bullets flew, and a large number of wanderers were killed by stray bullets. Screams filled the sky, and the ground was dyed red with blood. The last glimmer of twilight faded away. When night fell, the heavy truck finally rushed out of the edge of the forest and came to a flat plain. The lights of the pursuers connected into a light dragon, cruising on the vast plain. The muzzles of the guns and cannons became the eye-catching light source. On the plain, it was easier for the off-road vehicles to catch up. The distance slowly closed. 600 meters, 500 meters, 400 meters. Zhang Wei, change into your armor. Zhang Wei was shocked. He had already changed into his armor in advance. When he activated it, he immediately felt the changes after the modification. With the endoskeleton providing power to move, he finally did not need to use much energy. Furthermore, his vision turned into an analysis interface, and a series of battlefield data appeared. It could even assist in aiming. Zhang Wei was pleasantly surprised, and his eyes widened. So strong. Han Xiao was putting high-explosive sniper bullets into his anti-material rifle. Hearing this, he said calmly, "This is just the most basic modification." Zhang Wei only had one thought at this moment. 360,000 yuan was really worth it. Ding ding dang dang. The sound of bullets hitting the heavy truck became more frequent. "Return fire!" Han Xiao roared, and Zhang Wei kicked open the door of the cargo compartment. Zhang Wei's field of vision suddenly opened up, and the helmet blocked his ferocious expression. He raised both of his hands, raised a large-caliber, triple-barrel machine gun, and opened fire with a roar. 2-2-2-2. The high-frequency gunshots were deafening, and the thick gunfire crazily spewed out. The bullet shells were automatically thrown out and fell to the ground. The large-caliber bullets were like rainbows crossing the sky, dragging flames behind them as they shot into the armored vehicles. Boom! The bulletproof windows of the two off-road vehicles were shattered, and the people in the vehicles were shot into sieves. Two long chains of ammo were attached to the outside of Zhang Wei's thighs, and they were dragged all the way to his back, filling up an entire box. These were all ammo that Han Xiao had prepared for him, enough for the Battler armored prototype to unleash its firepower. Dozens of armored off-road vehicles hurriedly spread out in formation to avoid Zhang Wei's strafing fire. At the same time, they returned fire with their mounted machine guns. However, Zhang Wei stood at the door of the cargo compartment in his armor. The external armor was mixed with platinum alloy by Han Xiao. The bullets hit his body, and the durability dropped very slowly. Zhang Wei even held the hexagonal shield on his back in front of him to block the bullets. Most of the bullets were blocked by his reef-like body. Han Xiao raised his sniper rifle and fired one high-explosive bullet after another, setting the pursuing vehicles on fire. The enemy drivers were caught off guard, and the flames burned the internal engines of the off-road vehicles. One by one, the vehicles were turned off. However, more off-road vehicles quickly closed in, and the external armor of the heavy truck was densely filled with bullet holes. This distance was enough. Han Zhao's eyes flashed, and he threw away the anti-material rifle. He took out the weapon box that contained the bamboo dragonfly version of the delayed high-explosive grenades and threw them out like they were free. The grenades flew close to the ground, and they just happened to fly under the chassis of the off-road vehicles and exploded. Boom! The armored off-road vehicle was lifted from the bottom by the explosion. Under the kinetic force of the remaining momentum, it flipped forward in the air and rotated 180 degrees before hitting the ground with its top. The fuel tank was ignited, causing a second explosion, and all the people inside were killed or injured. The kill notifications on the screen were crazily refreshed. Every time he flipped over an SUV, he would be able to kill at least 4 to 8 enemies in the vehicle. Coupled with the experience gained from destroying vehicles, a single vehicle would give him 5,000 to 7,000 experience points. This made him even more excited to blow up an SUV. The prepared grenades finally came in handy. Ah! Screams rang in his ears. Han Xiao hurriedly came back to his senses, and his heart sank when he saw that 2 captives had been killed by stray bullets. The captives are dead. The firepower of the pursuing off-road vehicles became sparse, and the people in the vehicles were scared out of their wits by the firepower of the heavy truck. A single heavy truck had destroyed more than 20 of their armored vehicles. It was simply appalling. Li Lin suddenly became excited. "I see Hesla's army." Han Xiao looked out of the window. Under the night sky, a large number of Hesla's military vehicles appeared in front of them. They were moving slowly, and their lights were brightly lit. Reporting to the commander, there is a small group of troops exchanging fire in front. Carl looked at the video feed inside the command vehicle and was shocked by the scene in front of him. More than 20 armored off-road vehicles were chasing after a heavy truck that was riddled with holes. Looking from afar, they left behind a trail of overturned off-road vehicles that were burning fiercely, like continuous beacons of war. Carl was bewildered and uncertain. The firepower of this team of Division 13 agents was ferocious. It was rare to see a team of agents with such strong combat power. Their firepower was comparable to that of a modern army, and they were small in number and agile in movement. This kind of team was usually the trump card. He suppressed the shock in his heart and squinted his eyes. Yi Fan, Winna, and the rest also saw this scene and were shocked. A single heavy truck withstood the firepower of an entire convoy and killed half of the pursuing soldiers. What kind of firepower was this? That heavy truck has been hit by at least 1,000 bullets, and it is still moving. That heavy truck must have been specially modified. They saw with their own eyes that a grenade had struck the armor of the heavy truck. However, the armor of the heavy truck was only slightly deformed. If it had been a normal vehicle, it would have been blown up into the sky. What kind of metal was that? It was too hard. Even the members of Division 13 were dumbfounded. When did Zhang Wei's team become so strong? Chapter 82. The German organization's fleet quickly turned around and fled. Karl's eyes flashed, and he ordered, "Cover them with fire, blow them all up." The adjutant understood what Karl meant. He was secretly shocked, but he quickly passed down the order and set the attack range. The fleet, equipped with honeycomb missile launchers, slowly moved forward and fired a barrage of short-range rockets. Big Black happened to be at the edge of the bombardment range. The sharp-eyed members of Division 13 noticed this, and they were both shocked and furious. The adjutant quickly explained, "We miscalculated the range. This is bad." Chi Baijia was enraged. "Karl, what are you trying to do?" he yelled. "What are you trying to do?" Karl did not answer. He was expressionless, but there was a flash of coldness in his eyes. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for not being from Hesla. The flames of the rockets left a bright and murderous glow on Li Yulin's retina. She said in horror, "Are they trying to blow us all up? Hesla did it on purpose." Zhang Wei was furious. Although he knew that participating in the joint operation would not avoid the hostility of the other countries, he did not expect this commander to actually take action. If they died, it would be a waste of their lives. He could just say that it was an accident and get away with it. Only the radicals would use such a dirty trick to kill their allies without thinking of the consequences. The German organization was the common enemy of the Six Nations. Everyone agreed to fight against terrorism, but they were not allies. There was constant friction. The leaders pretended to be polite, and the people below them were the pawns of the war. Familiar, right? Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and shouted, "Nitrogen acceleration!" Li Yulin immediately pressed the button. The exhaust pipe of the heavy truck burst into blue flames, and the truck's speed suddenly increased like a raging rhinoceros. The sudden acceleration force pinned her to the seat, and she could not move. The rocket launcher array was rapidly approaching. 300 meters, 200 meters, 100 meters, 50 meters. Boom! Finally, the hot wind blew up a mushroom-like dust cloud, and a continuous cloud of fire rose from the planes. In an instant, everyone was temporarily deafened. The sound was beyond the human ear's tolerance. The explosion scene in front of them seemed to have turned into a pantomime. All that was left was the dazzling flames that kept expanding and rising, illuminating the entire night sky. Everything within the attack range, be it cars or people, was torn into pieces. After a full 3 seconds, the buzzing sound entered his ears again. The agents of Division 13 were enraged. Di Su Su's eyes were filled with grief and murderous intent. Green flames were faintly rising from her body. The wind blew. The heavy truck broke through the black fog, dragging the burning rear of the truck as it staggered out. A small part of the cargo compartment was blown up, and some equipment and parts were turned into scrap iron. They're still alive. The members of Division 13 were pleasantly surprised. Li Yulin still had a lingering fear in her heart. It was only 10 meters away, and Big Black almost couldn't escape the range of the firepower. If it wasn't for the nitrogen acceleration, there would be nothing left of it this time. Han Xiao suddenly coughed up a mouthful of bloody phlegm. He wasn't completely unscathed. The shockwave of the explosion had entered his body, causing him to lose over 200 HP. His back had slammed into the carriage, and the second shockwave had caused him to lose another 50 HP. Even now, he was still feeling dizzy. After the nitrogen-fueled acceleration was completed, the engine of the heavy truck was overloaded. It only stopped when it reached the front of Hesla's army. When the Hesla soldiers saw the countless bullet holes on the heavy truck at close range, they felt a chill down their spines. What kind of intense battle had this truck been through? It was as if they had been shot into a sieve. It's a pity that the explosion didn't kill them. Carl frowned slightly in disappointment. Han Xiao and the rest alighted from the truck, and the agents of Division 13 quickly surrounded them. Qi Baijia was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. When he saw that Han Xiao was fine, he heaved a sigh of relief. At this time, Carl walked over, and the agents of Division 13 immediately glared at him. Zhang Wei gritted his teeth and controlled the armored vehicle to approach Carl. The soldiers at the side immediately pointed their guns at them. The adjutant shouted, "What are you doing? Step back. I want an explanation." Zhang Wei shouted, "Explanation? Childish." Carl ignored him. He glanced at Han Xiao and said calmly, "Where are the captives that you mentioned?" "Dead." Carl had sent the troops ahead of time and put him in danger. The two captives that he had painstakingly captured had died because of this. Most importantly, Carl had wanted to kill him with the explosion. Han Xiao lowered his eyes to hide the coldness in his eyes. "So, you don't have any evidence?" Carl frowned with dissatisfaction. His attitude once again angered the agents of Division 13. However, logic told them not to act rashly. They were in Hesla's territory, and if they were to turn hostile, they would definitely die. Qi Baijia suppressed his anger and said coldly, "Just wait for Division 13 to question you." Carl did not care. Division 13 could not do anything to him. This was just a mistake without evidence. At most, he would be criticized by Division 13. It was not a big deal. As long as he could conquer the Dark Crow Valley, he would be able to earn a considerable amount of merit. With the help of the people behind him, he would be able to become one of the core forces of the radical faction. No matter how Division 13 criticized him, he would be rejected by the higher-ups of Hesla. Carl thought for a while and pointed to Han Xiao, who seemed to be the most seriously injured, and said, "Bring him to the medics to check on his injuries." Han Xiao was expressionless as he followed the medics to the logistics vehicle. His injuries were all soft tissue injuries. With his endurance, he would recover after a short rest. He waved the medics away. The logistics vehicle started moving quickly, and the Hesla army continued to advance. He shook his head, lay on the bed, and closed his eyes to rest. He had not slept since yesterday. Now was a good time to rest. The sound of gunshots could be heard from afar. Han Xiao opened his eyes. He had been a light sleeper. When he got out of the vehicle, he realized that it was around 3 or 4 in the morning. At this time, the Hesla army had already reached the Dark Crow Valley security zone. The front line was engaged in a fierce battle. The 6-layer security zone of the Dark Crow Valley base was not only for patrols and sentry posts. It was also a buffer zone for large-scale armies. There were many bunkers and watchtowers. At this time, these strategic points were all guarded by enemies. It was a wartime situation. If the Hesla army wanted to get close to the Dark Crow Valley base, they would first have to break through the 6-layer security zone. In the forest, the Hesla army attacked all kinds of fortifications, watchtowers, and bunkers. Based on Yi Fan's intelligence, they were gradually advancing. Han Xiao was in the logistics unit, far away from the battlefield. 2 soldiers were waiting by the side. Han Xiao asked casually, "How is the situation now?" One of the soldiers said, "It is going well. Our army has advanced to the 4th layer of the outer perimeter." Han Xiao nodded. Just as he was about to leave, 2 soldiers stopped him. "The colonel wants you to recuperate here." When Han Xiao heard this, he immediately understood that Carl had put him under house arrest. He frowned and asked, "What about my companions?" "Your commanding officer also ordered us to look after you and let you rest." Han Xiao's eyes flashed. He understood Qi Baijia's intention. He did not want him to take any more risks. Qi Baijia did not dare to let Han Xiao go to the front line personally after he was almost killed by the rocket launchers. "This is actually more beneficial to my plan." Han Xiao thought to himself. He turned around and saw that Dahe was being dragged by a tow truck. It was parked at the side. The chase had almost destroyed the truck. It would not be usable without a major repair. Han Zhao's eyes lit up. He walked toward the truck. The two soldiers did not stop him. As long as Han Zhao did not leave the logistics area, they would not interfere. He walked into the cargo compartment. Everything was still there. The bodies of the two captives had been disposed of. Han Zhao took out a communication device from the box and connected it to Lin Yao's frequency. Lin Yao, are you still alive? Damn, I'm still alive. Lin Yao's annoyed voice came through the earpiece. What's the situation now? We are preparing to evacuate. I heard from the higher-ups that the other bases have deployed all their forces to stop Hesla's army. However, we have not found out the evacuation route yet. It seems that we will only know when we evacuate together. All right, I found out that the information given by Yi Fan was fake. The distribution of fortifications from the 3rd to the 6th level was real, but the 1st and 2nd levels were completely different. If Hesla's army had followed Yi Fan's information, they would have suffered heavy losses. Did you tell them? No, you're the first person to contact me. That's good. Don't inform Hesla. Lin Yao was puzzled. Why? Han Zhao told Lin Yao about the rocket launcher incident. Lin Yao was furious. This is too much. Carl had exposed his killing intent. Naturally, Division 13 would not help their army to reduce their losses. Han Zhao provided the information for the sake of completing the mission. Only by killing Pan Kuang, GG, and the other core members would the mission completion rate be high. Carl saw him as a tool, and so did Han Zhao. They used each other's information, and he used his army. It was a mutual benefit. As long as Hesla's army could complete the mission according to his information, he did not care how many people died in Hesla. However, Carl's sudden killing intent was unexpected. It's time to change the plan. Chapter 83. The morning sun had just risen, and it was the same for war. After breaking through the 4th security perimeter, Carl ordered his troops to rest for an hour. When dawn broke, they would continue to advance, preparing to break through the Dark Crow Valley base in one fell swoop. At that moment, they were fighting the enemy at the 3rd security perimeter. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of explosions was incessant, and the forest was in a mess due to the bombardment of bullets and cannons. There were shattered shells and shrapnel everywhere, and there was smoke everywhere. Hesla's soldiers cooperated with the armored vehicles to attack the fortifications, watchtowers, and bunkers one after another. The information that Yi Fan had obtained was of great use. The enemy's fortifications were exposed. Hesla's army managed to breach one fortification after another with minimal losses. The casualty ratio was extremely gratifying. The soldiers had never fought such a smooth battle before. Continue to advance and break through the last 2 security perimeters in one fell swoop. Carl was in high spirits. Of course, when the high-spirited troops broke through the 2nd security perimeter, the situation immediately changed from smooth sailing to a bad one. Not long after stepping into the 2nd security perimeter, Hesla's soldiers encountered their first ambush since the start of the battle. 2 armored vehicles and more than a dozen soldiers were blown up into the sky by anti-infantry mines. This was just the appetizer. Hesla's soldiers were in a miserable state now, and the number of casualties kept increasing. It was as if there were ambushes and traps everywhere. Yi Fan's intelligence was useless. Following the wrong instructions, they suffered even more losses. The commanders of the teams panicked. Using the intelligence obtained from the first 4 security perimeters, Hesla's soldiers made a reckless move to lure the enemy in. Then, the ambush was activated. The number of casualties kept increasing. Carl was both shocked and angry. Winna and the rest changed their expressions. It turned out that the intelligence they had obtained was bait. Han Zhao's guess was right. They were partly responsible for the loss of the battle. Yi Fan shook his head and said, "The enemy is too sinister and ruthless. Their intelligence trap used their own people as bait. It was too difficult not to fall into their trap. This is the advantage of the defending side. The Germinal organization can ignore the consequences of losing both sides but we can't. Carl was too aggressive. You should have listened to Han Zhao's advice and been more conservative. He looked at his teammates who were blaming themselves and sighed. At this moment, Carl's expression was extremely ugly as he watched the frontline soldiers fall one after another. Originally, it should have been a great victory, but now, even if he won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory, greatly reducing his battle results. Hesla's army suffered heavy losses, and their advance was as slow as a snail's. Suddenly, a fierce-looking man dashed out from the enemy's formation with a long sword in his hand. His whole body was emitting a cold, colorless flame aura. It was like an invisible flame, distorting the surrounding air as he dashed toward one of the Hesla soldiers. The soldiers hurriedly opened fire, only to see the man spin his feet as he ran, throwing out a dazzling saber light that swept in front of him. All the bullets were rolled into pieces by the saber light and fell to the ground with tinkling sounds. Martial artist! While the soldiers were still in shock, the man crashed into the crowd. In the next second, a chaotic burst of blade light erupted in the middle of the small group. The group of soldiers was instantly dismembered into a rain of blood. Their limbs, torsos, and heads fell to the ground. The man stood there bathed in blood like a god of war. Pan Kuang. The expressions of the agents all changed. He was the supervisor of the Dark Crow Valley base and the executive officer of the German organization. He had a lot of valiant battle records on the Darknet and had killed countless strong people. According to the battle records on the Darknet, Pan Kuang was proficient in saber techniques. His martial art style was derived from Raylan, and he was known as the Saber Soul. His saber light was the last image of his enemies' retinas before they died. The armored vehicles turned their muzzles and started firing at Pan Kuang with large caliber bullets. Pan Kuang started to move. Relying on his legs, he was unbelievably fast as he dodged around trees. The ordinary soldiers could not lock onto Pan Kuang at all. Most of the time, Pan Kuang was out of their line of sight, and all the bullets missed. Pan Kuang roamed the battlefield like the Grim Reaper, killing one soldier after another. He even split open the outer armor of a few armored vehicles, killing all the soldiers inside. As long as the surrounding environment provided a shielding barrier, superhumans could explode with powerful killing power in such a low-tech battlefield. With the protection of energy, ordinary gunpowder bullets would not be able to do much damage to them. A Grade D superhuman could fight against a small armed force alone and had a high chance of escaping safely after the battle. A Grade C super's individual strength had surpassed a certain standard. They had extremely strong physical resistance, and firearms and small cannonballs would not be able to damage them. They began to have destructive power that could ignore the terrain, and it was common for them to tear down buildings with their bare hands. A Grade C superhuman was considered the basic strength in the universe. It was also known as the basic constitution of the planetary exploration warrior. Every planet had different gravity and climate. A Grade C superhuman could land on most planets. Some races in the universe with harsh living conditions were even born with Grade C superhuman bodies. However, there were very few Grade C superhumans on the Blue Star. The superhumans on this planet were of a lower level. Pan Kuang was a Grade E+ superhuman, only one step away from Grade D superhuman. He could easily deal with a group of Hesla soldiers in the complex jungle environment. A superhuman was strong individually, and their biggest threat was to ambush the commander or infiltrate the enemy. Pan Kuang killed all the soldiers along the way, and he was heading toward Carl. Carl was targeted by Pan Kuang's murderous intent, and his hair stood on end. The soldiers around him did not give him a sense of security. He quickly shouted, "Fire the heat-seeking missile array." An armored vehicle equipped with a missile launcher arrived. It fired several small heat-seeking rockets, all of which were locked onto Pan Kuang. Pan Kuang quickly ran in circles in the jungle. The heat-seeking missiles hit the trees and exploded. Only the last missile passed through the gap between the trees and headed straight for Pan Kuang. Pan Kuang frowned and stopped in his tracks. He shoveled up a piece of soil and held his sword with both hands. The invisible sword aura extended, and he swung his sword at the heat-seeking missile. Pan Kuang's movements were extremely fast, and he hit the side of the missile. The missile was cleverly deflected, and it slammed into a tree 20 meters away, exploding into flames. Pan Kuang was only slightly affected by the shockwave. If Han Xiao was there, he would see that the damage value was less than 20 points. Seeing that even the rockets were ineffective, Carl's heart turned cold. He turned his gaze to the agents. His intentions were obvious. "Go!" Winna shouted, and the agents of Hesla surrounded Pan Kuang. Division 13 looked on coldly from the side. The so-called joint operation had fallen apart, and they would not help anymore. Pan Kuang immediately retreated when he saw the agents attacking. He did not want to be entangled with them. A gunshot sounded. A bullet was fired. A flash of sword light flashed, and the bullet was split in half by Pan Kuang. Pan Kuang was not faster than the bullet. Before the bullet was fired, he had already placed his sword in the trajectory of the bullet, and his reaction was extremely fast. Pan Kuang was expressionless. He turned around and disappeared into the jungle. Pan Kuang had killed more than 100 people and destroyed a few armored vehicles. The morale of Hesla's soldiers was low, and they suffered heavy casualties. The fatigue from breaking through 4 layers of defense was finally showing. Carl saw this, and even though he was unwilling to admit defeat, he had no choice but to slow down his attack. In the base of Dark Crow Valley, Jijia was watching the battle on the surveillance screen. The second layer of defense had been broken, and Hesla's soldiers were advancing toward the last line of defense. Even if he caused Hesla's soldiers to fall into the trap and suffer heavy losses, he would not be able to close the gap between the armed forces and the regular army. Nevertheless, everything was still under control. After Pan Kuang returned, Jijia had sealed off the passageway between the outer and inner bases. Even if the enemy managed to break through the outer base, they would not be able to find the inner base. Furthermore, Jijia had left a big gift for Hesla's soldiers at the outer base. "Deputy Director, when are we leaving?" "Now," Jijia said calmly. In front of the third secret passageway, the personnel of the inner base gathered. Lin Yao and Lambert were at the back of the group. When no one was paying attention, they pretended to be conversing with each other. Boom! The last bunker was blasted into ruins by a small tank. The remaining armed forces were left with only one choice, and they all retreated into the base. Carl finally heaved a sigh of relief when all the lines of defense were destroyed. The last 2 lines of defense had caused him to lose 70% of his men. The battle report was not going to be good. The enemy is only left with the last base. There is no way to escape. Should we let the troops rest for a while? The adjutant asked. Carl pondered for a moment. Suddenly, he remembered Han Zhao's intelligence report. It mentioned that there was an inner base and a secret passageway. He felt that this was the only chance to increase his military exploits. He could not afford to waste any time. He was worried that the enemy would escape. Therefore, he immediately ordered, "Attack immediately. Tell the soldiers to check the facilities inside, especially the storeroom. There must be a secret passageway that leads to the enemy's secret inner base." After the order was given, the soldiers who had not recovered from the fierce battle forced themselves to enter the base of Dark Crow Valley to wipe out the enemy. The space in the base was small, and the sound of gunfire was endless. The battle lasted for a while. Reporting, "We have found the storeroom, but there is no secret passageway. All the walls are normal. We have tested it with bombs." Chapter 84. Han Xiao, who was in the logistics area, watched the battle unfold from afar. In the past, he was used to high-level wars that could easily destroy planets. This low-level ground battle mode made Han Xiao feel very excited. The smell of guns and smoke brought a strong atmosphere of war. In comparison, the psionic cannons and ion cannons that could silently penetrate everything seemed much more civilized. Han Xiao sat in Big Black's cargo compartment. The 2 guards guarding him stayed close to the vehicle, as if they were afraid that he would run away. Lin Yao's voice came through the earpiece. Brother Xiao, we will retreat with the enemy's core team. I have planted a virus that can cut off their communication at any time. Good job. By the way, Uncle Lambert found something. The structure of the inner base is very strong. It seems to be explosion-proof. Han Xiao frowned as he connected all the dots. He suddenly realized that the outer base was not only a bait, but also a grave. There were probably a lot of explosives hidden there. As long as the intruders stepped into the base, they would explode and take everyone with them into the sky. The explosion could also cause the outer base to collapse and bury all traces. This way, the inner base would be even more hidden. Everything is really connected. Han Xiao sighed. Even if he reminded Lin Yao now, it would be too late. Besides, he did not even have the intention to do so. His plan had finally reached its final stage. Han Xiao stood up and packed his things. He put all the equipment and some of the precious parts of Big Black into a bulging backpack. Come and help me carry some things. It's a little heavy, he said to the two guards beside the vehicle. The two guards did not suspect anything. They walked up to the vehicle and prepared to help Han Xiao carry his backpack. The moment they bent down, Han Xiao made his move. Two righteous sneak attacks landed on the back of their necks, and the two soldiers were knocked unconscious on the ground without making a sound. Han Xiao closed the door of the cargo compartment, quietly changed into a soldier's uniform, and took off the mask that he had been carrying. He then activated the facial simulator, changed his appearance, and swaggered out with his backpack, sneaking into the logistics team without anyone noticing. 3 minutes ago, the adjutant rushed back and said, "The people from Division 13 are all here, but Han Xiao is missing." Carl was shocked. Gone. The two soldiers guarding him were knocked out. I asked the logistics team, but no one saw Han Xiao. Carl still wanted to say something, but a deafening sound suddenly rang out, giving him a big fright. He quickly looked towards the source of the sound. The mountain was shaking. The trembling was like an earthquake, causing everyone's expression to change. The Dark Crow Valley base had self-destructed. The entire base collapsed, and the entrance was completely sealed by the rubble. The hundreds of elite soldiers inside were all buried alive. Carl was shocked and angry. They had fallen into the enemy's trap at the last moment, causing unnecessary casualties. Furthermore, their base had been destroyed, which greatly reduced the value of this victory. As the commander, he could not escape the blame. Carl's face darkened. He thought back to Han Zhao's suggestion. If he had accepted it, perhaps he could have avoided these losses. However, if he had to choose again, with his personality and the situation at that time, Carl felt that he would still make the same choice. He felt irritated and slammed his fist on the command vehicle. The army had suffered heavy losses, and Carl's heart was bleeding. He issued one order after another to calm the soldiers down. When the agents from Division 13 arrived, Carl asked with a solemn face, "Your teammates are missing. What happened?" "Han Xiao is missing again." The agents from Division 13 looked at each other in shock. Why did he add the word again? Chi Bai Jia's vision turned black. King did this again. Zhang Wei and Li Lin, on the other hand, were very calm. From the perspective of experienced people, they inexplicably felt a trace of superiority. Wasn't it normal for Han Xiao to act on his own accord? It's fine as long as you get used to it. He must have gone to cause trouble again. Li Lin snorted and said to Carl, "If you didn't get the confidential information, you would have destroyed the base and thought that you had eliminated all the enemies. You wouldn't even know that the enemy had escaped." Carl thought for a moment and realized that this was indeed the case. He was shocked. If the Dark Crow Valley base made a comeback in the future, he would be the first to be held accountable. "What other information do you have?" Carl couldn't help but ask. Zhang Wei suppressed his disgust for Carl and said, "Two of our comrades have infiltrated the enemy's evacuation team. Once they confirm the enemy's evacuation route, they will send the information over." Carl's eyes lit up, and he immediately said, "Inform me immediately if you have any information." He didn't expect Han Xiao to have done so many things. Fortunately, the losses had exceeded his expectations, and he could only atone for his mistakes by increasing the results of the battle. Intercepting the enemy's core troops was their last chance, and his mistake as a commander could be minimized. In an inconspicuous area 10 kilometers away from the Dark Crow Valley base, Pan Kwang, Ji Jia, and more than 200 Corps members drove out of the secret passage. They were carrying a large amount of valuable information about the Dark Crow Valley base. I guess the Hesla people think that they have one. Ji Jia couldn't help but smile. Pan Kwang glanced at him and said, "Don't let your guard down." Ji Jia nodded and ordered the team to speed up. In another 2 hours, they would arrive at a secret hangar. There were a few Black Harriers and a small transport aircraft parked there. In the team, Lin Yao and Lambert both received Zhang Wei's order through their earphones. They looked at each other and knew that the time had come. Lin Yao took out a tablet and secretly activated the virus that was buried in the enemy's communication network. Screech! Everyone's earphones rang at the same time. Everyone was shocked and hurriedly took them off. Ji Jia was dissatisfied. He wanted to stop the leading car and check the communicator. The next moment, the sound of engines could be heard coming from the surrounding forest. They were surrounded by enemies from all directions. "Get down!" Pan Kwang's expression changed. He pinned Ji Jia to the ground before he could react. Just as Pan Kwang was about to do this, gunshots rang out. Bullets rained down on the convoy from all directions. Grenades after grenades overturned the vehicles of the German organization, and sparks flew everywhere. Lambert grabbed Lin Yao and jumped out of the car. They rolled on the ground and hid in the woods to avoid direct attacks. Ji Jia's expression changed. His plan had been exposed. Who leaked the information? Run! Ji Jia didn't have time to be shocked or depressed. He was dragged into the woods by Pan Kwang. In the woods, Carr was excited. He commanded the soldiers to surround the core of the enemy team. In his opinion, this was the last hope for them to turn the tables. In the distance, Han Xiao, who had changed his appearance, was driving an off-road vehicle alone. He had a thermal imaging device in his hand and was constantly observing the periphery of the battlefield. Soon he found his target. Pan Kwang and Ji Jia had broken out of the encirclement and escaped. The soldiers and off-road vehicles that were chasing after them were all destroyed by Pan Kwang's powerful combat ability. Han Xiao confirmed the location of the two using the thermal imaging device. He then took a big detour and followed them from a few hundred meters behind. "A car is following us." Pan Kwang turned around. Through the gaps in the woods, he vaguely saw the tracks of the off-road vehicle. The sound of its engine could be heard from afar. Pan Kwang wanted to kill the car that was following them. However, every time he got close, Han Xiao would turn around and leave, maintaining a fixed distance. Pan Kwang thought that Han Xiao was a specialized reconnaissance vehicle and was reporting their location through the radio. He didn't dare to stop and drag Ji Jia along. His stamina was greatly depleted. "As long as we reach the hidden hangar, we can escape by helicopter." This was Pan Kwang's only choice. Although he had superpowers, if he was surrounded by an army, he would be exhausted to death. The sense of danger urged him to speed up. He ignored Ji Jia and was almost foaming at the mouth from exhaustion. After more than 20 minutes of chasing, both parties were far away from the battlefield. "It's about time." Han Xiao made up his mind. He compared the military map that he had stolen from the logistics team and took a big detour according to the route that they had taken. The off-road vehicle was even faster. He circled around to a small cliff that was more than 10 meters high. He stopped the car, turned off the engine, and put on all his equipment. He put on the modified, lightweight mechanical arm on his left hand and pinned the small case of the magnetically controlled extendable armor on his back. He put the Berserk Eagle pistols in the holsters and buried the last 10 explosive bombs within 5 meters of him in a circle to act as simple landmines. A thin wire was connected to all the explosive bombs. He only needed to pull lightly to activate them. Han Xiao took out a sniper rifle that he had plundered from the logistics team. He crouched on the cliff and aimed in the direction that the two enemies were about to appear. He held his breath and focused. Ji Jia was out of breath. He was not a superhuman, so his stamina was limited. If Pan Kwang hadn't pulled him, he would have collapsed. Pan Kwang's face was cold. He shouted, "Don't stop. The enemy can come at any time. We need to get to the hangar quickly." Soon, the two ran out of the forest and saw a mountainous area. Jie's legs gave out, and he finally sat on the ground. He gasped and said, "I can't run anymore." Pan Kuang frowned. He was a little impatient, but he couldn't leave Jie behind. This guy's sister was one of the people in charge of the intelligence network. "Why don't you carry me?" That way. Jie opened his mouth, but before he could finish his sentence, the sound of a sniper rifle rang out. Pan Kuang reacted quickly and quickly retreated. However, the target of the sniper rifle was not him. Jie's head shook violently, as if he had been punched. A bloody hole suddenly appeared on the left side of his face. The powerful momentum caused the bullet to roll around in his skull and shatter the right side of his face. Blood and flesh splattered all over the ground. Jie's expression froze on his face, and he slowly fell to the ground. He couldn't have been more dead. Beheading 2 completed. Damage 100%. You received 40,000 EXP. Chapter 85. Pan Kuang was closing in quickly. Han Xiao kept pulling the trigger. Bullets flew out of the muzzle and pierced through the air toward Pan Kuang. However, Pan Kuang seemed to have a beast's instinct for danger. He was always able to change directions before Han Xiao could open fire. He fired a total of 13 shots. 9 of them were dodged, leaving bullet holes on the ground. 4 of the sniper bullets hit, but after breaking through the blade-like barrier, their kinetic energy was depleted and they were deflected by the circulating energy shield. The total damage was only around 80 points. The higher the level of a superhuman, the higher the resistance of their body. Normal firearms would gradually become useless. The power of conventional weapons was a reflection of the level of a civilization. As versions and maps were released, conventional weapons would gradually be upgraded. Naturally, that was not the time for that yet. The distance of a few hundred meters was quickly shortened. Pan Kuang's murderous expression appeared clearly in Han Zhao's vision. "Damn it, what a snakeskin move." Han Xiao cursed in his mind. He hurriedly threw away the sniper rifle, pulled the string, and activated all the delay bombs. He then retreated in a cowardly manner. Pan Kuang was faster than him. He stepped onto the rock in a few steps and stepped into the circle of delay bombs. He immediately realized that something was wrong. His expression changed, and he leaped into the air. His blade spun and condensed under him. It was as if he was stepping on a whirlwind. He felt as if he was going to spiral into the sky at any moment. Boom! 10 delay bombs exploded at the same time. The flames swallowed Pan Kuang whole. Your delayed high explosive grenade has dealt 34 damage to Pan Kuang. Damage reduction has been calculated. Your delayed high explosive grenade has dealt 37 damage to Pan Kuang. Pan Kuang has been lightly burned. More than 10 damage notifications appeared on the interface. Han Xiao glanced at them. This round of explosions had taken away more than 400 of Pan Kuang's health points. Based on your level, you have received some information about the enemy. Pan Kuang level, 38 class. Special Agent, LV-10. Pugilist, LV-10. Storm Swordsman, LV-10. Attributes, 65 STR. N? Mystery? CHA, 8. LUK, 7 health points. Energy points. Energy rank, 687 grade. E+ talent. Elementary swordsmanship. Increases attack by 10 points when using sword-type weapons. The essence of the wind blade. The blade is an extended limb. Listen to the breath of the wind. Skills. Wind Guard Blade, LV-6. Wind Slide, LV-4. Equipment. Additional effect. Wine Breath. Smooth to the touch. Plus 3% attack speed additional effect. Strong Edge. The blade is extremely sharp, dealing 7% additional damage to metals. However, Han Xiao did not rely on data. From Pan Kuang's performance, it was obvious that he was the type with high attack and high agility. His HP was definitely limited. The explosion just now had taken away at least 20% of the enemy's HP. Furthermore, Pan Kuang had been through a fierce battle and had been on the run for an hour. He was not in perfect condition. My chances of winning are higher. Han Xiao looked at the experience points on the interface. It was a whopping 520,000 experience points, all of which he had invested into leveling up. He had risen 4 levels in a row like a rocket. Total level 28. His HP was 985, almost reaching 1,000. Originally, he had already practiced the energy refinement technique 48 times, and his energy points were just around 390. He was just one step away from leveling up 4 times in a row, and his energy points immediately increased to 514 points. He had exceeded the 400 points requirement of level 5 and obtained a new attribute bonus. His strength, endurance, agility, and intelligence had all increased by 10%. He invested the rest of his experience points into continuous slide shot, leveling it up to level 2. Whoosh! Pan Kuang rushed out of the flames. His body was char-black, and he looked pathetic. His eyes were like that of a wolf's as he chased after Han Xiao. He let out a low growl, took a step forward, and glided forward like the wind. In the blink of an eye, he had closed in on Pan Kuang. He was going to cut this little bug in half. Pan Kuang was shocked by Han Xiao's sudden burst of speed, and even Pan Kuang was taken aback by the sudden change in speed. He dodged the blade by a hair's breadth and quickly drew the 2 berserk eagles from his waist. With the increased shooting speed, he fired a few steel core bullets at Pan Kuang's chest. Pan Kuang retracted his blade, and the bullets were all shredded into pieces. Only one stray bullet hit his chest, but its power was reduced by his powerful energy. It was stuck in his muscles and could not move an inch. Han Xiao saw that normal bullets were ineffective, so he quickly changed to high-explosive bullets. Pan Kuang took advantage of this short moment to close in on him. "How dare you change your magazine in front of me? Are you tired of living? Changing bullets in front of a martial artist?" His combat experience was too inexperienced. Pan Kuang's face was ferocious. He stabbed the wind cutter blade at Han Xiao's throat. He wanted to pierce through it and skewer Han Xiao like a meat skewer. He could see that Han Xiao would not be able to dodge this attack. Ding! The tip of the blade hit Pan Kuang's throat, but it was blocked by a layer of metal that looked like fish scales. Pan Kuang's pupil shrank. When did this armor appear? Han Xiao's throat tightened. Although the magnetically controlled retractable armor could withstand the impact, some of the force would still pass through his body. He raised his pistols and fired continuously. Pan Kuang blocked the bullets as he did before, but the high-explosive bullets exploded upon contact. Flames snaked up his body and burned fiercely. What kind of bullets are these? Pan Kuang was shocked. He tried to shake off the flames, but he failed. He could not shake off the orange flames, and his skin started to burn. He had no choice but to withdraw his energy to protect himself. This drained a lot of his energy. The high-explosive bullets were very sticky and caused continuous burning damage. Pan Kuang's resistance was too high, so his HP decreased very slowly. At least, it was better than normal bullets. At least his HP was continuously burning. The bullets from the 2 berserk eagles poured out in torrents until only the last bullet was left, which was used to reload the clip of slide shot. During this period of time, Pan Kuang's clothes and hair were all burned away. The price Han Xiao had to pay was to use the magnetically controlled retractable armor to withstand Pan Kuang's powerful attacks. The armor's durability was decreasing rapidly. Han Xiao's eyes narrowed. He put away the berserk eagle. Because of this, he was hit again and pulled out the foldable platinum battle sword from his back. With the sword in his right hand and the mechanical arm in his left, it was as if he was possessed by a barbaric ancestor. Like a fearless beast, he engaged in the most dangerous close-range combat with Pan Kuang. Blood splattered everywhere. "You hit me, I hit you back." Han Xiao's 3 pieces of equipment, the magnetically controlled retractable armor, the mechanical arm, and the battle sword could all be used as shields. In comparison, Pan Kuang, who could only use his body to block, seemed to be at a disadvantage. However, the reality was the complete opposite. Pan Kuang had the upper hand. Usually, he would hit Han Xiao 7 or 8 times before Han, Xiao could land hit on him. Their close-range combat abilities were not on the same level. Pan Kuang was a pugilist, so his close-range combat skills were much stronger than Han Zhao's. Han Zhao's close-range combat ability was as laughable as a tortoise's punch to Pan Kuang. If it were not for his equipment, Han Xiao would not have been able to land a hit on Pan Kuang. You chose to engage in close-range combat with me. Do you want to die faster? Pan Kuang did not understand why Han Xiao dared to engage in close-range combat with a pugilist. In his opinion, this kind of behavior was equivalent to using one's own weakness to challenge the enemy's strength. It was arrogant and reckless, no different from courting death. The blade swept past, and a deep wound appeared on Han Zhao's cheek. Blood flowed out profusely. Before the battle, he had taken off his facial simulator to prevent it from being damaged during the battle. Now, he was showing his real face. Pan Kuang had already recognized him. He was the defector who had been rumored to be in the organization some time ago, Zero. Pan Kuang did not know why Zero would appear here and attack him, but he was not interested. He only knew that the person in front of him was an enemy. No matter what the reason was, he would just kill him. The force of the slash passed through the armor and shook Han Zhao's body. His HP dropped rapidly, but Han Zhao's eyes were extremely calm. He dared to use his own weakness to challenge the enemy's strength, so he was confident. The previous snipe, the explosion, and the current method of exchanging blows had reduced Pan Kuang's HP by 700 to 800. Pan Kuang had the protection of the magnetically controlled retractable armor, so his HP had only decreased by 300. Let me put it in another way. The magnetically controlled retractable armor had reduced his HP loss by at least 1,500. The magnetically controlled retractable armor was a piece of equipment that Han Xiao should not have at his current level. It had 75 defense points, which was extremely shocking. Even after reaching level 40 or 50, it was still very strong. It was his biggest trump card of the moment. With this armor, he had the ability to kill anyone of the same level. Han Xiao twisted his hands and used grappling capture to lock Pan Kuang's arm that was holding the blade. Pan Kuang's eyes were filled with disdain. His arm was as soft as noodles, and he instantly escaped from the grappling capture. He then slashed Han Xiao again, leaving a deep cut on the lightweight mechanical arm. If it were not for the platinum alloy, the lightweight mechanical arm would have fallen apart. At this moment, Han Xiao noticed a detail. Pan Kuang's movements slowed down for a moment, as if he was trying to conserve his energy. He started to get tired. He's exhausted too much energy, and he's losing his attribute bonus. His condition is deteriorating. Han Zhao's eyes flashed. His sharp battle sense allowed him to discover the hidden information in Pan Kuang's movements. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. He instantly chose to retrieve the item that had been placed in the interface. Character Summon Card. Norsakono. Character Summon Card has been used. Current usage count. 1/1. Usage count. 1/1. Card will disappear soon. Pan Kuang suddenly saw a person's shadow appear behind Han Xiao. A pair of strange eyes with colorful mist swirling around them were the most obvious. Pan Kuang felt a sense of familiarity. Who is that? It looks like Norsa. Isn't he dead? What's going on? Pan Kuang was alarmed. He wanted to retreat, but it was too late. With just a glance, he fell into an illusion and could not move. Chapter 86. Pan Kuang was a level 38 pugilist with high attack and agility. His intelligence could not be higher than 50 points. If he was really lucky, Han Xiao would choose to hit him on the spot. The illusion made Pan Kuang defenseless. All of his attacks were close to real damage. However, his level was high, so he would not be effective for long. Without hesitation, Han Xiao punched Pan Kuang's lower body with his left mechanical arm, aiming for Pan Kuang's vitals. Overload. The power output of the mechanical arm increased by 30%, and the punch hit the bullseye. Violent Chicken. Yes, that's right. This move was a divine skill that he had comprehended after observing countless images and data. Once he used it, even the heavens and earth would tremble. There was no time to look at the information. While Pan Kuang was still under control, Han Xiao immediately activated the air pressure oscillator in the palm of his mechanical arm. He shook his palm, and the shock wave penetrated his body. Blood seeped through his skin and dyed his lower body red. His right hand was not idle either. He stabbed Pan Kuang's chest without hesitation. Pan Kuang was affected by the illusion, so he did not use his energy to protect himself. The attack went straight through. Han Xiao immediately pulled out the Berserk Eagle and pressed it against Pan Kuang's chest. He slid forward and pushed Pan Kuang back. He activated the magazine and fired all the bullets into Pan Kuang's body. Blood splattered everywhere, mixing with the flames. The sound of flesh being penetrated could be heard. The magazine was empty. Pan Kuang finally regained consciousness. The pain made his face contort in anger. He stabbed Han Xiao's lower abdomen. He was giving Pan Kuang a taste of his own medicine. He was going to attack little Han Xiao. Han Xiao used his energy to control the magnetically controlled metal to protect his vitals. He blocked the attack, but the impact made his face pale. He felt a chill run down his spine. He endured the pain and extended his mechanical arm. He grabbed Pan Kuang's head and threw him to the ground. The back of Pan Kuang's head came in contact with the ground many times, and a pool of blood gradually formed. He roared in pain and counterattacked. His long sword left after images in its wake, and Han Xiao's health dropped rapidly. 100 wind rend. Pan Kuang roared in agony. His long saber suddenly emitted a dazzling saber light. Han Xiaoxin was alerted. He hurriedly stood up and retreated. At that moment, the wind cutter blade released multiple rays of light that surrounded Pan Kuang like a tornado. Countless deep marks were left on the ground around Pan Kuang. Han Xiao was hit head-on, and the durability of his magnetically controlled retractable armor plummeted. Because the attack range of this skill was too large, the areas that were not protected by the magnetically controlled retractable armor became a bloody mess. A series of 40 damage values popped up. The flash of the blade lasted for 3 seconds before it stopped. Han Xiao retreated 10 meters away, gasping for air. Blood mixed with sweat dripped down his face as he stared at Pan Kuang. Pan Kuang would not be able to use the same attack consecutively, and the cooldown period would not be short. Pan Kuang stood up with the help of his saber. He looked miserable. His lower body was badly mangled, and his chest was filled with bullet holes. The flames were still burning, and the smell of burnt flesh was coming out. The burning and bleeding had caused him to suffer double damage. His body was in a terrible condition. The retractable knife was still in his chest. His face was even worse. His nose was broken, and his bones were visible at the back of his head. He looked like a ghost, and this ghost was staring at Han Xiao. Han Xiao was on high alert. He was ready to add all his AP to Yendi. This was his other trump card. A gust of wind blew up the dust, but it also took away a trace of the murderous aura. Pan Kuang slowly lowered his head and stopped breathing. The last trace of life was burned away by the continuous damage. It was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. You have killed Pan Kuang, LV-38. You have received 21,000 EXP. You have killed a target 10 levels above you. You have received 280% EXP bonus. Total EXP, 58800. Your damage output is 99%. You have received 58,212, 99%. EXP, Beheading 3 completed. Damage output is 99%. You have received 79,200 EXP, 158,500 EXP. That was all that Han Xiao had received from killing Pan Kuang. Killing someone above one's level would result in additional rewards. The minimum requirement for triggering the reward was to be 5 levels above one's level. The additional EXP would be distributed according to the damage output. This was because most of the time, players would form a team to complete the mission. If there was a player in the team who did not meet the requirements, the entire team would not be able to receive the reward. Therefore, the team valued the cooperation of the players' battle tactics and skill. Of course, there were also experts who could solo players above their level. Han Zhao's expression relaxed. He sat down on the ground and let the sun shine on his face. He closed his eyes comfortably and enjoyed the peace after the battle. The smoke, flames, and blood around him did not exist. He suddenly thought of something. He quickly jumped up and pulled down his pants to check on little Han Xiao. He heaved a sigh of relief. Good, good, good. He was not damaged. He was still a sleeping dragon. After resting for a while, he began to check on the damage. The durability of his equipment had dropped quite a bit, and the delay explosion had been used up. His own health was slowly recovering, and the damage was still within an acceptable range. Han Xiao walked over to Pan Kuang's corpse, pried open his fingers, and pulled out the wind cutter blade. He flicked the blade with his finger, and it made a crisp sound. The additional effect of this green cold weapon is quite ordinary. However, its attack is twice as strong as the retractable knife. He put away the wind cutter blade and walked over to Ji Jie's corpse to search for loot. Suddenly, he found a hard object in the corpse's pocket. He took it out and saw that it was a communication terminal of the German organization. Han Xiao turned his eyes and activated the communication terminal. 10 seconds later, the holographic image of the leader appeared. Ji Jie, have you retreated? The leader was halfway through his sentence when he realized that the communication terminal had changed. It was Han Xiao with a faint smile on his face. The leader's expression changed as he stared at Han Xiao. Why are you here? Zero had used Ji Jie's communication terminal. The situation was clear. The Dark Crow Valley base had been destroyed, and Pan Kuang was most likely dead. The leader was enraged. You dare to contact me on your own accord? Han Xiao smiled and said, Yo, long time no see. What's with the tone of an old friend reuniting? Give me some awareness as an enemy. The leader couldn't catch his breath. After half a second, he asked, Where did you get this confidential information? This was what he had been wondering all along. Han Xiao looked at her as if she was looking at a melon. Why do you think I'll answer you? The leader said angrily, Do you think you can damage the organization's power with this kind of method? How naive. I destroyed 4 of your bases. An ant trying to shake a tree. I can easily crush you to death. I destroyed 4 of your bases. There are countless executives in the organization. You won't be free for long. I destroyed 4 of your bases. The leader sounded like he was chewing on steel. Every word was filled with murderous intent. Don't think that you can survive just because you joined Star Dragon. When my people find you, I'll pull out every single one of your tendons and bones. Han Xiao chuckled. He pressed his finger on his lips and threw a flirtatious kiss. Then come and find me. If you find me, I'll let you have some fun. The leader flew into a rage and was about to explode from Han Xiao's mocking tone. Just as he was about to say something, Han Xiao suddenly smashed the communication terminal, and the communication screen went black. The leader's words were stuck in his throat. He was so angry that his whole body trembled. Pass down my order. Zero's global bounty is increased to 5 million. It was increased by 5 times. Han Xiao stopped smiling. Teasing the leader of the German organization was not something he did on a whim. The German organization would definitely send people to the West capital to find his location. They would not give up until he was dead. It seemed to be disadvantageous to him, but it had no effect on him at all, because Han Xiao had no intention of going back. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.